choppy. It's weird. Why is it easy that you can't play football anymore? What's the deal?
I cannot get medically cleared to play football.
Oh, you said legally. I thought there's loads of dropping his track right now. Dropping let's go Brandon too.
Legally, anybody who would let me on a football field in pads would be liable for anything that would happen.
I thought it was because you're a weapon of mass destruction, and they were like, we can't legally allow this beast to play football.
He's a weapon of ass destruction, is what it is.
Listen, college was looking real good until I couldn't pay for it for free anymore.
Valid. We've got. Looks like my camera was unplugged. That's
look at Soonie's picture.
I don't know what happened. You guys can hear me though. Camera's perfectly plugged in. This is a new one. Well,
we're saving the people a lot of pain having to look at your face right now.
I know, maybe that's the benefit of this. So, guys, make sure you watch today's episode and make sure you share it out.
Look at that pretty face.
I know. What is going on?
God. I find this awesome. Here, let's just fix it. There.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Move on. Today.
Damn, I just kicked Russo off.
There he is. He's back.
Damn it, he's back.
Got it. I don't know what the hell happened.
A tragedy for all.
Share this video out. We did a whole bunch of stuff on the Rittenhouse trial. This is episode number 75. I don't know how the hell we got here, but we got here to episode number 75. We're going to be talking about Rittenhouse, closing arguments, the judge letting everybody go home tonight, the fact they didn't come to a conclusion. We're going to be talking about the Ahmaud Arbery case. Kevin has spent a lot of time with that as well as Rittenhouse. So we're going to talk about those two things. And then we're going to get down to the brass tacks. We're calling this the Soonie Show. We're going to cover all of Soonie's hot button subjects, repealing the 19th. We're going to be talking about how she's upset that Trump and the LGBTQ shit. And then the terminology used by Joey Basements of negro. What? I'm getting dizzy. Who keeps switching things up? I'm so confused. What happened? Anyways,
Casey
all right, guys. Casey, you sandbagging son of a biscuit. You guys ready to get the show started?
I was muted. Damn.
Yeah. No.
Tap.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is episode number 75 of Truth Will Set You Free. We've got, let's see, what do we got? Kyle Rittenhouse. We've got Ahmaud Arbery. We've got those two cases we're going to be talking about closing arguments on those. We're going to talk about Ahmaud Arbery, just what went on today. I think the defense and I think both have rested. I don't know. Kevin's going to talk more about it. And then we're going to make it the Soonie Show. We are going to be talking about Soonie's hot button topics, repealing the 19th. The stances on LGBTQ and Republicans, still going to those kind of events, and then Biden using the terminology negro. So let's get the party started. Let's make some intros. Let's say hello to everybody. It's time for Truth Will Set You Free. What's going on, everybody? What's you guys living the dream? Soonie, why are you wearing the Cam Newton jersey? Explain to us.
Because Cam Newton came back, everybody was talking so much about Cam. Cam's not gonna do anything. Cam's always injured, and he came back his first game and dominated. Okay, he got Carolina the W. It was a blowout, 34-10 against the Cardinals. So we'll see his next game. I'm just happy he's back. So of course I had to wear my Cam Newton jersey, and I've got to do the famous Superman. Did you guys see they gave him a flag for celebrating in the end zone? I cannot stand these refs, man. Let them celebrate.
Well, no, it's a flag for taking off your helmet. It's a stupid rule.
Fuck it. Yeah. Who cares if he jumps into the crowd, takes his shirt off, and starts dancing around? I don't give a damn. The guy scored a touchdown in the NFL.
It's nicknamed the No Fun League, NFL, for a reason.
What if they remove What if he removes the helmet and puts on a face diaper? Does that nullify the penalty?
Because he's black, he'll still get charged with it.
He said the face diaper. Oh gosh, that was a good one. You actually made it funny, Bruce. So it's shocking. Usually you get dad jokes.
Welcome. I see Reese's comment up there. Reese, send a message to your what does her thing say? I wiped my own ass today. That's great. Send us a message on the BetheChange page. Love to know if we could do more, talk to you more about what you've got going on. Soonie is doing a whole bunch of stuff right there. I don't know what's going on. So real quick, we're going to do, before we do everybody saying hello and talking about what's going on, we're going to do some quick housekeeping. Case, if you could do me a huge favor and throw up the actual link for the Great American Summit. For those of you not knowing, we are part of something. You'll see everybody on the screen there except for Soonie because she lives in Japan. But we are a part of something very big in the state of Texas on the January 7th and 8th. It'll be in Irving, Fort Worth areas where it is. Fort Worth, DFW. There it is right there. Go ahead and click on that link. We had a bunch of people click earlier. But I'm telling you right now, you've got biggest names you could think of right now in conservatism. You've got Ian Smith, the gym owner. You got Nick Vujicic, the motivational speaker with no arms and no legs. You've got Ryan Weaver. We're going to have a concert. Tickets are $197 for 2 days, and it's not a rally. It is literally a place where a bunch of patriotic-minded, and trust me, these are not like ultra pro-Trumpers in any way, shape, or form. I've had a conversation with several of them. It's a bunch of people that want to get together, meet like-minded business folks like the Bradleys of the world. They're going to be there. He's going to be there to actually find a way to get our country back. So please click on this link. If you don't want to buy tickets tonight, save it. Again, January 7th and 8th, and go back to it later. Buy those tickets. We'd love to sell out that 1,000-person room, and it's benefiting, and there is no profit. It's benefiting whole bunch of different charities, from veterans charities to different things, Gary Sinise's foundation. And it's run by a Gold Star wife. You've seen Barb Allen before. So it's all for a good cause. And it's also for us. It's not even just for a good cause. It's for us to get together and actually make a difference and make America think again. Boom. Lastly, I'll let Easy do it. He loves talking about the gear. Go for it, Easy.
Oh, he's pulling a Soonie.
Pulling a Soonie.
That's why we can't hear nice things. Easy. Muted. It's his microphone again. It's the blue.
Check your mic settings. Check your mic settings.
Easy.
It's broken. Guy. I can read lips really well.
Oh, poor guy. Just turn it into your computer settings.
I have to say, the two people that constantly have problems with computers run Macs. So I don't know what to tell you.
Who's running the Mac?
Cool. Anyways, we lost Casey.
Russell's running Max.
Yeah,
I've still run a Mac. Oh crap! I'm supposed to be watching something right now.
Of course, I run a Mac. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
All right,
so if you want to check out, go to Awake Not Woke store. Casey, put it in the comment box. Awake Not Woke store. We've got the Make America Think Again. We got Soonie's gear. We got our gear. We've got Awake Not Woke hats. We've got Soonie dabbing over and over right now. I think she's having a seizure. Somebody make sure she's okay. She is loving this Cam Newton kit.
She goes by Newtonian time.
We also have, what else do we have? Unviewed Lives Matter. We got the whole thing of becoming a sheep. We have a ton of stuff. Check it out. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Should we, Casey? Can you extend it to the end of the Rittenhouse trial? Like, let's just say tomorrow night. We're going to do one more day because I know we're going to get a lot of viewers if we're able to put that up. Thanks, veterans. We're extending the Veterans Day sale until tomorrow night, till midnight tomorrow night. I'm assuming that's when the trial will be over. So thanks, veterans. Gets you 25% off. We're not going to be doing 20% for a while. So again, that's 30. Oh wow, somebody beat that. 30%. I'm sorry, 25% off. Sorry, I'm watching a barrel race right now for Kelly. So I'm doing two things at once. So I apologize in advance.
I guess we're just not worth your attention, Anthony.
I'm going to focus. I have to let she beats me if I don't do what she tells me to do.
You enjoy it.
Look at Soonie's like, oh, you beta. You beta. Oh.
You said it. I didn't want to say it, but
she's rough and tumble. Okay. All right, guys. So here's what we got going on. We've got a really full show. I'll let Kevin introduce himself, talk about what's going on, Casey, and then we're going to get down to brass tacks.
Yeah. Oh, is that me?
That's you.
Yeah. So Still got the Liberty Revolt going, working on getting more content out. I recently did an article about the protests that took place here in Larimer County that really gave me a lot of encouragement about where this movement is going, where the fight, the resistance is going. Just continuing over there at the Liberty Revolt to spread the language of love and nonviolent resistance. Become ungovernable, don't become violent. And, just trying to really get the message of liberty flowing in as many areas as possible. And just we're taking a lot of encouragement from the fact that so many people seem to be taking the red pill and abandoning the matrix and leaving it behind and trying to figure out what's actually going on in this world. So
love it. Casey, what's up with you, brother? You've been doing a lot of video watching, a lot of court watching.
Well, I've been sitting at my desk for a lot doing work. But yeah, I've been just clued into Kyle Rittenhouse's stuff, and what was decided tonight, not a decision in the court case, but when they sent all of the jury home, it was really
not good,
surprising to me, which we'll cover when we get to that topic. But other than that, it's been a whole lot of work. I am kind of surprised that Kevin is not some crazy folk that wants to go gun toting because he lives in Colorado, but whatever.
Look, man, I am all about the peace first. I've seen what violence does to people.
You damn hippie. You drive a VW bus?
I drive a big old Chevy Silverado, bro.
Classic liberal right there. I like it. Reese, by the way, I like that what you're saying there, follow the money. We also have a follow the money t-shirt. Moving on. Let's get started. First off, one thing I wanted to mention about the vid. There's this story out. This is not a show topic, but I just wanted to cover this because it's hilarious. It's not actually that sounds terrible. It's not hilarious. It's just the fact that this is not being broadcast because they're still pushing mandates. But this is a local news in Connecticut, NBC affiliate. 8 dead. Again, as I said, not hilarious. 8 dead, dozens infected with C-19 due to outbreak at Connecticut nursing home. 8 people are dead, and just shy of 100 more have become infected, is what they're saying. Out of the 89 people that got it, the 89 exactly, total infections, 87 fully V'd. You're not hearing this in the media right now, but, screw it, right? 10% mortality rate.
I wanted to point something out.
WakeNotWakeStore.com. Thanks, veterans. 25% off. Last chances. Let's get it done.
That's some dial-up internet latency there. Like we asked you a couple hours ago.
He had to in the background. I did want to point out. I've been watching a lot of Jimmy Dore, and he's on the left. Like he is absolutely on the left. But my God, is he on point about what he reports? And he one of the topics he was talking about was in the vacation trial done by Pfizer. They had, I think, 153 testing sites, and only 19 were ever inspected. And there was so many reports out of it from people running the study saying it was being done improperly. It was not being done correctly. They never were checking the sites. They were ignoring negative reports and all this other stuff. So that was what was submitted to the FDA, from my understanding, and what played a part in the approval process. So it's like, if y'all want to find out a lot about this Jimmy Dore is a wonderful source on it. Like he's hilarious, and they do a lot of good research about it, and they come at it from the left amazingly well.
Jimmy Dore is fantastic. Even though he is more liberal, and he talks about it, and he tells you, hey, I'm this. Like, this is where it's coming from. But he is an amazing person to be able to actually hear stuff from that side of the aisle. To hear that and the way he approaches it, it's fantastic. And to hear him go at CNN, it's hilarious.
Oh, it's so great. It is just so great. They're just mad because I've got 10 times the viewership as them. Of course they're going to be upset. It's like, yeah.
And legitimately, there's things out there that are blatant. Like right now, there is new drugs specifically coming out. And this is not conspiracy hour. This is not conspiracy theory. There is literally new drugs coming out that prevent blood clotting in children. Really weird timing, right? Like, there's so many like blatant things. The other one that I want to bring up,
and they will come. What are you talking about? It ain't weird.
Exactly.
Feel the dreams.
Another one. So in a world of misinformation, Soonie gets taken off Facebook all the time. Casey's not allowed to post anything. This
I'm
is
in the good boy side. Mark Zuckerberg.
Well, actually, what am I talking about, Kevin?
I got post-poll from July.
it's so in the world of misinformation where you can't miss a step. The new main guy on NBC, is it NBC News? Yeah, NBC Medical's correspondent. His name's Dr. John Torres. I saw this on a screenshot, and I'm like, is this legit? And then I actually found the clip. Unfortunately, there have been
143,000.
He goes, unfortunately, because he was talking about childhood. They were talking about should your kids get the jab. And he was talking about hospitalizations. He said there had been 8,000 something hospitalizations. Then he said, unfortunately, there have been 146,000 deaths. The correct number is under 700. And he was not corrected by the host of the show, and never was it ever retracted. So there's a bunch of idiots out there that currently think 146,000 children have died of the vid. It's never been corrected. In a world where information is so important and misinformation, how is that not corrected? And there is a video of it. Maybe I'll post it or do a video with that in it. But real true. Oh, that was on the Jimmy Dore show is actually who presented that one. That's who actually found that clip. Funny enough. Anyways, that's it on the vid. Anything else you guys want to talk about that, or do you want to jump right into Kyle and Ahmaud Arbery?
Let's do it.
All right, let's start with Ahmaud Arbery because obviously we've been talking a bunch about Rittenhouse, and we'll get back into that. But let's talk about Ahmaud Arbery. I'm gonna have Kevin in the upper right. Kevin, go ahead and give the rundown of what you've been watching as you've been spending a lot of time with that trial.
Yeah, so just to give background on Ahmaud Arbery, this happened last year in Georgia. He was a black man that was jogging, and he was stopped by two white men with guns. Some stuff happened. There was a little bit of an exchange, and it ended up that they shot him. And it just seemed at the time, especially, and I'm still biased against it. It looked like a modern day lynching. It looked like this black jogger was just running down in Georgia and got harassed and shot by two black men for being accused of being a criminal when he was just, whatever. But anyways, the trial started last week, and the reason why this trial is so important, in addition to the Rittenhouse, is the Rittenhouse trial has been labeled he's a white supremacist. It's been all over the news and everything as an example of white supremacy. The Ahmaud Arbery trial, not necessarily the same because it looks so cut and dry. But it was basically like, obviously these guys are going to get caught, but the defense that these guys presented rests on a couple things. So first and foremost, in Georgia, according to Georgia law, as I understand it, citizen's arrest is okay to perform so long as the person you are doing it to is suspected of a felony. So the defense is making the case that Ahmaud Arbery was not just an innocent jogger, he was a prowler who had the police called on him multiple times, and there was a pattern of him being seen in the neighborhood, skulking through stuff had gone missing, and the night before, he had been on a property. So the defense is making the argument that because of the events of the night before, these men thought they were justified the next day in this citizen's arrest. And so if true, that would mean that he was being placed under a lawful arrest and resisted and ended up getting shot by these men by Georgia law. Not that I buy into that defense, but the thing is that the key witness in this case is a cop that was on duty the night before, taking care of it, and he was the one who he patrolled the neighborhood. The neighborhood was his beat, and he had the night shift. So the night before, though, they had been called out to a property that had construction on it, and it was not the first time they had been called. In fact, they had been looking for Ahmaud Arbery to serve him with trespassing, to bar him from that property and say, the next time you come on there, you're getting arrested. Funnily enough, the property owner there, when the case first happened, said, I had never had a problem with Ahmaud Arbery. I'd never called the police. In fact, I was more worried about this white couple. And, people were like, okay, so yeah, they never called the police on him. The fact of the matter is he had called the police on Ahmaud Arbery multiple times, 9-10 times over the past month and a half, 2 months. Ahmaud Arbery was prowling around the night before, quote unquote, according to the defense. And they have it on video from this police officer. They thought Ahmaud Arbery was armed. They thought he had committed a felony, burglary. He was on this property illegally. And they weren't alone that night. They were joined by 3 men, 2 of whom were the men that ended up shooting Ahmaud Arbery.
Pitchforks?
Huh?
Did they have flames or pitchforks or anything like that out of curiosity?
No, they didn't. They were trying to help. They were coming out to help their neighborhood, and they were told they were looking for this man, and that he was potentially armed. And the cops treated the search as if he was armed. So these men, the next day when they ran into him, according to the defense, based on the testimony of the prosecution's star witness, were performing a legal arrest that Ahmaud Arbery resisted. He was in fact a repeat criminal in the area and was wanted for trespassing and burglary, burglary being a felony in Georgia apparently. And so that would mean that he was in fact resisting, and they have a case to be made for they were actually performing self-defense. It was not an unlawful kidnapping, because that's what the prosecution is going for, is unlawful imprisonment, kidnapping, assault, battery, and murder. Like it's a felony murder. It's a capital offense.
So let's get to the bottom of it. After we've got the description based on what you said, based on a little bit I've seen. I talked to Cash actually a little bit earlier about it. He's been watching a lot of the trial in jail. The irony. But based on what you've seen and what you've watched, is there any chance that the defense should be found not guilty of the charges? Is there multiple charges in this case as well?
Yeah. All the things I laid out are various charges. They're all felonies, and they all compound upon each other. Capital felony murder is a capital offense, meaning death penalty case. So the thing is that going into this trial, I thought it was clear cut. There was no case the defense had. Absolutely, there was no chance that these men were going to get off. They were dead men walking. But after seeing the defense, which, oh, by the way, Casey's going to get into it a little bit, and I'm going to comment on it there too. This is a tale of two defenses. Ahmaud Arbery, that case, those men have an insanely good defense attorney. Kyle Rittenhouse's defense attorney is utter garbage. He is absolute trash. So
you think Rittenhouse's defense attorney is garbage?
Yes. Oh my God. He's been letting in evidence that has absolutely no place being let into the trial constantly, and is not objecting at all to anything that is being brought up.
I'll respectfully disagree on that one, but hey,
Casey, I'll comment when Casey goes on to that one. But the Ahmaud Arbery trial, the scary part is this one was supposed to be so cut and dry. It was so obvious that there is a reasonable case being made, whether I agree with it or not. The standard is beyond a reasonable doubt, and there has been reasonable doubt introduced into the case that these men were in fact, because they were there the night before. The last thing they knew of Ahmaud Arbery was that he was armed and potentially armed and dangerous, committing a felony. These men were under the impression that the man they were stopping, Ahmaud Arbery, was in fact wanted for a felony. Ergo, under Georgia law, they were legal in their stop. And so whether or not I actually buy that full stop, or whether or not I think it's reasonable that they actually continued that thought process, there is a chance that these guys get off, and that would be catastrophic. If you think Kyle Rittenhouse getting off is potentially bad, and he didn't kill a single person of color at all, he didn't do anything but kill fucking career criminals and pedophiles, The worry becomes, because of what the media drummed up about this, it would be as if Derek Chauvin got off on his case. But nobody's talking.
I know our favorite troll is trolling us on this one, but I think we're actually in agreement for everything that I've seen. Yeah, and even based on your description, we are just laying out the facts of the defense.
Yeah, I'm laying out the facts. I don't buy it.
I think it's a modern day lynching based on everything that I've seen. It was a bunch of good old boys riding up on a dude that they had been. I mean, there's some questions to me, like, the whole thing is like, why would you go for a jog, 20 miles from your house, or however far away he was from his house, which is a little weird. Regardless, that this is that vigilante justice, which I think is the polar opposite of Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse, I do firmly believe, was literally had a gun so that he did not have to use it. I think these guys were itching to
I don't doubt that.
Black guy.
But the problem is that they were in a position where there's a legal defense to what they did, and whether I agree with it or not, and I would say these men are guilty, there is a reasonable doubt being introduced based on the facts, and you have to acknowledge what the facts are, unfortunately.
Yeah. Really quick, Tracy, he wasn't allowed to. There was a lot of stuff he was not. The defense in the Rittenhouse trial was not allowed to bring up. That was set up beforehand. We're going to show that in a second. God, he's an idiot. So anybody else, any thoughts on the Ahmaud Arbery case? I know that Casey watched a little bit. I don't know if anybody else has on this one.
Like you said, I'm in agreement. Even at the beginning, I don't know if I could justify the actions that were taken. Don't know if I could. I saw someone comment that their citizens arrest shouldn't exist. I disagree on that, but because eventually, if things go bad, you have to rely on the people to do things, and you got to give the people the power to handle it. And that's the reason why it should exist. But with the whole situation with Ahmaud Arbery, like he was, I don't care if he's 500 miles from his house jogging, he has the right to do that.
Yeah.
And it has to be respected to do so.
Yes.
And it is not a citizen's place just because he was caught going through a construction site. If I recall correctly, it was a house construction.
It was a house
site.
under construction. He did it multiple times. Like
and he was walking through it. So be it. But he was never caught taking anything from there. He was going through it. So he could get trespassing, but that's about it.
Yeah.
And so
shit shouldn't be dead.
Yeah. No.
Citizen's arrest is supposed to be you see someone getting raped and you stop the person doing it. It's supposed to be like on the spot kind of deal, which is why I don't really buy it. But the case is being made and it is from a reasonable angle. But I think that doing it so late after the fact is absolutely ridiculous. And I don't think that it justifies their actions at all.
No.
A citizen's arrest should not ever end in the death of an individual at the hands of a gun because they felt out of control. So citizen's arrests are pretty specific terms. And to understand what it is to do a citizen's arrest means that you also have to be able to understand your position in the context of the law. These individuals did not understand their position in context of the law. They came with guns. They shot this fool, and they thought they were going to get away with it by claiming self-defense. They have some statutes in Georgia, to what Kevin said, that do provide them protection under the law, none of which provide them premeditated action into what they are claiming to be citizen's arrest. So although there is some ways to defend this, none of those statutes cover 3 people jumping in a truck with guns, running down the street, and essentially claiming citizen's arrest. And then when that individual resisted, they did not deem as a fair citizen's arrest to be shot and killed like a dog in the street.
I think it's a very interesting parallel when you look at the Rittenhouse trial in this one, because it is the exact thought process. A lot of people are saying just because in Rittenhouse's trial, which they're not allowed to bring up, but the fact that the guy had molested 5 children is not a reason to die. No, it's not. The fact that one guy is a felon is not a reason to die. No, it's not. The fact that Ahmaud Arbery might have been doing something a little fishy, and I can't say that he wasn't. There's something weird about why he was there, what he was doing. This is the example of it should not be a death sentence. The difference between the two is they attacked Kyle. Ahmaud was they were the pursuers on Ahmaud Arbery. They were the ones that went after him. They were the ones that pushed the violence. If the same was for Kyle, if Kyle would have been like, get away from the store, pointed the gun and chased them down into an alley and shot them, I think this would be a very different case.
So let me address this comment real quick, which is Jay, it doesn't matter. If this person had a gun, then they should have called 911. They were looking for a reason.
What they did.
The citizen's arrest statutes are very specific. Like I said, if this individual had done something illegal, they caught him in the commission of a crime and decided at that point that citizen's arrest, which is to stop and apprehend, not to stop with deadly force. There is a significant difference. If this person had a gun, they don't have the right to shoot them. They are not in defense of themselves or their property, period.
Yep.
Well, and then to this real quick, he wasn't wearing jogging clothes. That's what I'm saying. There is some fishy things about but it does not matter. He did nothing to warrant being killed. And they even called the police. They were pretty much on the phone. I remember hearing the recording of them pretty much telegraphing that they were going to kill them, a black guy. Like, I mean, it was as backwoods as you can possibly get. Before we move on, because let's go to Rittenhouse real quick before we get to the Soonie show. Soonie, do you have any feedback on Arbery? Do you have any thoughts? Have you been able to watch it all in Japan?
I mean, I'm not going to assign race to this. You have 2 idiots that felt like they wanted to take the law into their own hands, and the guy just happened to be black. I think people need to get away from saying things like modern day lynching, because those are buzzwords. You're going to get people worked up, and they're going to feel like, oh, this guy lynched a black man.
I heard somebody at gunpoint is a crime.
Yeah, you can't do that either.
Or brandishing a weapon. You need people have to understand. Hold on, because this comment is important. You cannot hold somebody at gunpoint as a crime. You pull your gun out, you better be ready to use it. It is a crime to brandish a weapon in public. without due cause. If you pull your gun out and you do not shoot it, you're brandishing a weapon. You will be the one facing charges, not the other individual.
If you're stopping a violent crime,
gun laws, they don't. You don't know gun laws. Please reserve your right to stupidity, but do it in a way that makes sense. You can't have people out here running around thinking, well, I can just pull a gun on somebody and that will stop a crime. Bullshit. That's not what happens. A citizen's arrest, like I said, is a very strict statute. You can't pull a gun on somebody and expect you not to be held with a crime. It's brandishing a weapon. It doesn't matter whether you're a concealed carry holder or not. You pull out a gun and you don't use it, you are brandishing a firearm in public. It is a statute that is broken in almost every case.
So, Soonie, go back to what you said. Why do you think it's bad to use the term modern day lynching in this instance?
Because you're going to agitate an already agitated demographic for no reason. Nobody knows any racial aspects to this case. It's all speculation, and you're interjecting something like you're inferring something with no evidence. Well, I heard a call. So they're from the South. We talk funny in the South.
I get what you're saying, but I think also there's power in calling a spade when there is something that seems blatant based on everything you've heard, based on everything I've heard. It seems as backwoods as humanly possible. I think that this is that case where, you know, you take one and you say, this seems like when everybody else says the other stuff, when you're like,
you don't have to call it a modern day lynching. You can I get where you're coming from, Soonie, and I guess the important aspect of it is to understand that that's like it's buying into the narrative as well, because like there is quite a bit of that, but I guess the point to be made on it is that that's what it appeared like in the narrative. That's what it was called, and the evidence didn't necessarily refute that to the broader public. So therefore, if the case does come out that these guys are somehow found not guilty, the public's reaction would be, I thought this was just a modern day lynching and these guys got off. You're 100% correct on that.
You know what's going to happen? BLM is, you think BLM is bad, Kyle Rittenhouse? Oh, they're going to come out in massive numbers and destroy everything because people keep saying this is a modern day lynching. We need to get away from race, man. Like,
I'll take that. That's valid.
We got to.
I will say I think the guys that did it were racist. I think they do have a prejudice, but I think the terminology modern.
People don't know what I'm really like on the fence if people know what racism is. Like, we need to go back to the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s, maybe into the mid 70s, when somebody thinks they are better than you and they literally stop you from having any financial growth, education. That is racism. Somebody having a prejudice.
That's systemic racism.
I have prejudice. No, it's racism, period.
No, that's the definition of systemic racism.
Yeah.
Racism is thinking you're superior to another human being.
I just said that.
No, you said keeping them from being able to have a
you went into this systemic result, like how you see it within the system back then. But it was your point stands.
Okay.
Well, I agree that I could take the word modern day lynching out of it, but I think it's blatantly obvious.
All I'm saying is people need to stop using the word, man.
Sure.
The black population is already agitated. They're already agitated. We are on this side that says, hey, we don't believe in racism. Like, I don't care what color you are.
Yeah.
But then we do shows and we talk about racism. That doesn't go together.
Prejudice is discrimination or prejudice based on race is the terminology, is what racism is. So it is.
What is interesting about this is I agree. I see both of your guys' points, and I do agree with Soonie. It'd probably be better if we didn't say racism, but these guys definitely profiled him. They passed judgment without even knowing anything. And the big thing that I hate about this case, I don't know how you can make a self-defense case when it's 2 versus 1.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Like, no, it makes no sense to me. It's ignorance.
But I'm telling you, if Kyle Rittenhouse had these guys as defense attorney, like there would be zero question of his innocence.
I think there's still zero question.
I just so this is where I can end on the Ahmaud Arbery side, and you guys can finish up on it. But and I agree. I think using the terminology modern day lynching is a bad idea, and I will remove that, and I will take that. And I agree, but to not call out racism when you see it is defeating the point, because sometimes, even though we're at a fever pitch in this country, I think ignoring when something is racist gives the credibility that we ignore that there is still racism in this country. I don't think it is anywhere near the numbers that the mainstream media will put it, but I think there is still racism in this country. This is an example of it. I believe that this is an example of it. So I think admitting it when I see it, and admitting it, and again, this is individual. Admitting when you see racism is not, to me, it's a very positive thing, because it does show that we're willing to admit when there is racism in this country. Is it prevalent? No. Is this a situation where I do believe there's racism? Yes. I think it was I think everything surrounding it had to do with. I think this is a racist. I think this has a lot to do with race in this case.
It just comes down to the difference between right wing and left wing racism, overt versus covert racism. The right winger says everyone should be able to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, but I don't think you will because you're black. Whereas the left winger says you're black, therefore you won't get anywhere without my help, kind of deal. It's the two different kinds. You do have to be able to call it out when you see it. And
this is where I call
agree
it
with
out.
you, Soonie, in that it's too much, because at the end of the day, whether Ahmaud Arbery was black or not does not matter to the fact that there was two men that stopped this guy on the streets. This is a bad case for gun. This is more or less how a poster child for how to not use your right to self-defense and your right to carry a gun more than anything. Whereas Kyle Rittenhouse is the definition of why it's important to be able to carry a gun. So I think Soonie, you're 100% right in that we should absolutely be doing our best to take race out of this, out of the situations as much as possible.
But not when but see, that's silly. When race is part of the situation, taking it out is doing exactly what the left thinks that we try to do. The left says you guys think that you're in a perfect
Who cares what the left says?
Nobody's racist.
Fuck them.
But see, to me, that defeats the whole purpose. Not recognizing when something is racist, when it to me is an issue. I think you're very right. My terminology was inflammatory, but using the term racist by definition, using the English language, and by seeing something where you're calling out racism, I think is important.
Why does that bother you? Like, why? Honestly, this is a legit question. Why are so many white people trying to look, this is racism? Like,
no,
why?
Not at all. Not at all.
You can't fix it. You're never gonna get rid of racism. Never.
Exactly. But what you can get is people to communicate better with each other, and our conversation with the left gets shut down. And maybe not as much for you, Soonie, but you still catch flack from black people as well. But my conversation will get shut down when people will look at something like this and they say, "You're telling me you can't call this out as racist," and I'll say, "No, it's not racist. It's just hatred. It's whatever." That makes me look ignorant to what is truly going on in this instance. I will say over and over again that racism is not even in the top 50 issues for Black America. But when something is racist, I call it out. This across the board looks like old school racism put in modern day, and it's, although rare, to ignore it makes me look like a fool. Makes our group of people look like a fool. Again, I get what you're saying. I agree. I wish we could take race out of it. But as a realist, as somebody that can actually look at what's going on and also understand the implications of completely pushing shit under the rug, I think it's a bad look to pretend like racism doesn't exist in a case that's, to me, blatant racism.
Sure.
That's all.
The true,
but you guys are right. I won't use modern day lynching again. I think that was a poor choice of words on my term, on my case. Cool.
Yeah. Let's talk about the real white supremacist here.
Yeah, let's talk about Rittenhouse. All right, closing arguments. I think Casey's watched it more than me, but I've watched quite a bit of it. Give you the updates. Closing arguments. What I was going ham on is the fact that the prosecution made up a friggin' fable, made up a story that they knew would be aired on every major television station in the country. And guess what didn't get done? The defense their closing statements, which were based in reality, were not aired by MSNBC and CNN, which continued the horde. And I believe, as though Soonie said last week, that there would not be. It's so cut and dry, which it is. There wouldn't be riots. There wouldn't be this. There's already crowds building in Kenosha, and it's not because of anything short of the media. And I'm not saying they're inciting violence. They're inciting more news. They want to be able to cover more damage, more destruction, more protesting, more whatever. And right now, it's working for them because
they're
it's
inciting profit. Ooh, new one.
Boom. So that's where we're at on that. Tonight, the jury, for some odd reason, after one day of deliberations, was allowed to go home. I don't know how, and they're going to come back at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. The rest, you guys probably know the bulk of the story. Hold on. If a black man confronting another black man killed. That's called black on black violence. All right. So moving on. Who wants to cover this? Who wants to talk about this first? Case.
Which first? Rittenhouse stuff still?
Yeah, Rittenhouse.
Okay. I find it interesting. So there was something I learned today. I didn't realize how they actually chose what jurors when you had over 12 jurors on how they decided what 12 jurors stay. Turns out that they put it in a little tumbler thing, spin it around, and they have someone there present and take the numbers out that they're going to remove to get down to the number of 12. And the choice was Kyle Rittenhouse to draw those numbers. That's not normal, but it's okay. It's still perfectly within process. I know there's a lot of people talking about that today, saying, well, they didn't follow a process. They just put more pressure on Kyle, blah, blah, blah. Like, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. That was interesting. And so I thought that was weird. And then when I started reading into it, I was like, oh, cool. So this does happen. It's just not commonly done by the defendant to draw the numbers. Gun charges were dropped, which is fantastic. The gun charges. This is a whole bunch of speculation from the left is, oh, he's under 18. He shouldn't have a rifle. Actually, no. Anybody over the age of 16 could actually have a long rifle. It cannot have a barrel shorter than 16 inches, and the entire gun cannot be any shorter than 27 inches. That is what the laws and the statutes state for him to carry a rifle, and as long as it's open carrying, it is lawful. That is why that is thrown out.
Do you think that he got lucky on that one, or do you think he knew the law?
I think he got lucky on it.
I agree.
But it is what it is. Like, he was still lawful, and being 17, almost 18, like, you could probably get away with it too if you're not intending to harm anyone. And that's what I honestly believe is you really have the gun there just as a presence to show people you're there with force. And it causes people to take a step back and usually react differently. But when you have someone like dipshit Rosenbaum, no, he sees that as, oh, I'm going to call you out. Shoot me. And he finally got shot.
The prosecution blamed him on having short man syndrome. Like,
right.
I'm going to let you on a secret. You can still hurt somebody or kill somebody as a short man, just to let you know.
Yeah. Anyway. And then with the everything else that happened today, I have to say I'm quite surprised, but I was listening to an attorney today that I follow. I can never remember his name on YouTube. And he was breaking it down. And he says that if it wasn't decided within an hour after the jury was deliberating, he knew it was going to go into day 2. It was for sure going to happen, because the part that with these people, they're going to be more worried about what's going on around them and outside. And that's their biggest concern. And there is speculation. I'm not going to spread it because I can't validate it or vet it. There's speculation on it exactly why it was pushed off today. But when it comes to this whole trial, I still think Kyle's going to be walking free. The question on I don't understand why BLM supports a pedophile and abuser. It's all mainstream media. That's exactly what Russo just talked about. There's a picture I shared earlier with Eric and Russo that Occupy Democrats was like making all these people out as heroes and stuff like that. And it's just sad. Then because they don't actually paint the picture of what these people are. All 3 of them have a very colorful record. All 3 of them. The Rosenbaum that started all the shit is one that is a pedophile. Like, he's a pedophile. He was in a mental hospital that day and was checked out, given his clear bag, because that's what they give you in mental hospitals, with his little things in it that he was carrying around that night. He also has a whole bunch of mental disorders. I want to say bipolar is what he had.
He had a bunch. I mean, and they can't obviously bring up everything in the case. To answer this question, didn't he say he was there to act as an EMT? He did, and you know what's interesting is he did provide EMT type services. But here's the deal: just because you lie or fib or lie or whatever about why you're there someplace, that doesn't mean you don't have the right to protect yourself. Number one. Right. Number two, I find it ironic that Gage was saying if he was an EMT, why was he also wielding a gun? Says the guy saying he was an EMT while wielding a gun.
Illegally is like Gage was more illegal in his gun possession than Kyle was.
100%. 100%.
Gage lost his gun rights a long time ago, and they tried to play it off that, oh, he just didn't renew his concealed weapons permit. No, he actually got a gun charge that removed his paramedic's license from him being an EMT, and it removed his ability to possess a firearm because he is now a felon. And so he should not have had a gun that night at all.
No.
I will enter into evidence that he went on Anderson Cooper literally two nights after his testimony and refuted everything he said under oth.
You mean he went on the former CIA employee?
Correct. He went on CIA Anderson's narrative. Yep. And Anderson Cooper flat out asks some questions about carrying his gun. Why did he have it? Did you point it at him? And he refutes everything that he said under oath in the courtroom. So, you know, people are wondering why there's crowds raging and frustrated as piss.
CNN is putting this bullshit out there. That's
right. And you know what? This is going to be one of those. Probably end up in a tremendous civil lawsuit, maybe from the state of Wisconsin, from the city of Kenosha, as well as from Kyle Rittenhouse and those affected, because of the narrative being pushed, having nothing to do with what was actually testified under oath, being completely conjecture and specifically, in my opinion, to incite riot and nothing else.
Right. And then you have one last thing to touch on with this is you have this special individual. He pulled out the gun that was there, and he pulls this out to show it. And what he does is I want to say this is near the end of his closing arguments.
It was, yeah.
He pulls out the gun, and he does what to put fear in people. He pulls out the gun, shoulders it, and puts his finger on the trigger and points it at the jury, and then turns around and does it again and points it at the crowd, the people that are sitting and observing the court. Like, this is unacceptable.
Yeah.
And in any reasonable circumstances, this should have, if nothing else before this, should have been grounds for mistrial. This specific action, whether or not people want to believe this or not, this is considered jury intimidation.
Correct.
This should have been dismissed the moment that it was entered into evidence and he had it in his hand. 100%. This is where I can agree with Kevin. His lawyers were a little bit lazy.
They were incredibly lazy. There was one point where the prosecution presented FBI images that, when zoomed in, simulated the image that they thought should appear. It was done through artificial intelligence. That never should have been entered into record ever. Fake images are not evidence in court. That is a fake image. It is an AI processing.
Which one was this? Which picture is that?
With the FBI footage. They zoomed in and used AI to recreate it, and it was allowed in. They allowed in footage that talked about like a militia and stuff like that from earlier in the day that never should have been there. Yellow Pants Man that they talk about, that's been mentioned, he never appeared in court. None of his testimony should have ever been brought up because Kyle Rittenhouse has a constitutional right to confront his accusers, and that man is a witness and an accuser. So
specifically was discussed in pre-trial as well as being exculpatory evidence.
Yeah,
so he's saying that there's somebody in the comments saying he did not point the gun at the jury. I'm watching it right now. Yes. Yeah, definitely pointing it at the jury.
And then at every onlooker in the courtroom. So
Yeah.
Is it as opposed to like all the other angles? Like the fact that angle exists is a problem.
Oops,
Like
sorry.
the fact that angle exists is the issue. It does not detract away from what he did. He had his gun. He pointed a gun at people in a crowd. He had it like up on halfway up his shoulder, finger on the freaking trigger, pointing it at a crowd. Like I don't give a shit.
God.
That was more egregious than anything Kyle Rittenhouse did.
Hold on. So you know what? I think that first off, the jury's got 18 people, so it's pretty wide. So could it have been pointing at the corner of one of them? Potentially. But I want to pull up this TMZ video because you should see the look on the guy's face that was handling the firearm, that was like the one, keeping it, in lock, the one that was handing it to him. His face was like, what the hell did you just do? Like, what just happened? Hold on a second.
He was just trying. He's trying to save his job, man. That's all he's trying to do.
Watch this. Let's see. I'll keep the sound off. Watch this guy's face right here. It's like, yeah, there's this, and you're right. He might have pointed at the right side of the jury, but the jury goes wide. And then look at his eyes. Did he just do that? Give me the gun. Give me the gun. Give it. That's classic.
That's also the DA who lied under oath. So let's not pretend like these people don't have some interesting things going on here. Or excuse me, the detective that was taking statements from him and then decided to prosecute.
So the last thing
projecting his own fear.
The last thing I'll say about Rittenhouse is I just did bring it up, and I just said that it's to the right side, but it's still pretty much pointed at that whole right side is the jury over there. But regardless, the last thing I'll say about the Rittenhouse trial is the only positive or thought process I might have in them. There's no positive to them sending them home. I think that's the dumbest thing on the planet. The fact there's a couple jurors that are allegedly confused leads me to believe that somebody might have gotten to them on a very cut and dry case. But whatever. The thing that I could think of, the reason why they pushed it to tomorrow, maybe they do have something right now, maybe they're ready. I think it's much safer to announce during the day than it is in the evening, personally.
Well, the other problem is the governor of Wisconsin announcing that he's sending the National Guard there over the weekend, knowing full well these jurors are going to be there. He knows, like, that's jury intimidation in and of itself, announcing that, because they're allowed to see that. That does not pertain to the case necessarily.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely ridiculous. They are doing everything they can to get the verdict they want out of this, because this is a huge case for the Second Amendment.
100%. All right, let's get into it. I know we're already 52 minutes in, but we got at least 40 minutes more because I want to go over all of Soonie's issues. So when Soonie is back, I think she's grabbing her breakfast, possibly a shot of Fireball to get ready for this stuff. We're going to be talking about some of her hot button topics, repealing the 19th, LGBTQ, and Trump, and the usage of the term negro from Joe Biden. Let's see if we can get Soonie, paging Soonie, paging Dr. Soonie. It's your show from this point. Soonie.
Oh,
there we go. Soonie. I know we took a while to get there. I think the least contentious, we'll start with is the terminology that Biden used as negro. I know that you saw that I posted the video on Instagram. You said, why is this such a big deal? If anybody out there doesn't know, Joe Biden said, I'd like to use the attitude of the great Negro, the pitcher from the Negro League, Satchel Paige. So he said the great Negro. He could have just said pitcher, but whatever. Soonie thinks it's a much to do about nothing. Continue.
I do. Negro is a term to describe Black people. White people used it back then. Some of the most greatest Black iconic leaders used it. When did it become racist? Because Obama said so? And when did we start listening to Obama?
White college-educated liberals.
I think it's been racist well before that. I think it's been racist for about 30 years. Well, it's a relic. There's certain things that just aren't used anymore.
According to who?
It's literally the Spanish word for black. Like,
agreed.
That's like it's standard leftist nitpicking to find something. It's the same thing the left does. It's like, because come on, he's an old man. He was going to say the great Negro League pitcher Satchel Paige. Like, it's not like I don't. He had a slip up.
Negro Leagues discusses an actual league called the Negro Leagues. Yeah. We don't. There's not a bunch of white people that walk around saying like, "Oh, look at that Negro."
The great Negro spirit.
That's not how
Biden was even using it.
He used it in its proper context. There's nothing wrong with a white person referring to the Negro League and calling a black person a great Negro. It's no different than you saying this great black man. You're literally saying the same thing.
Well, first off, I think in that instance, he didn't have to say anything. He was going to say Negro Leagues. He could have just said, I take on the attitude of the great pitcher from the Negro Leagues. There was no need to use the word Negro. And it's just
decided to do that halfway through saying it.
It shows how dated he is. You don't hear white people going around saying, I mean, unless you want to bring back the term Negro, which I think it's absurd at this point. There's no point.
I think it's absurd to have a ton of white people running around being offended for black people. That's what I really think.
I'm not offended. I think this is the great misnomer in your argument is you think I take offense to this. I take offense.
You're specifically talking about you. I made a broad statement when I'm looking at the entire internet, which happens to predominantly be white.
Yeah,
period.
It's the standard stuff you see on the left where they try to take everything out of context. Joe Biden was using it in the right context. You're just waiting for him to say, oh, look, he messed up again. Look, it's like
it's no different than what they would do to Trump. And then you got, well, if Trump said it, Trump ain't in office.
I would have called out Trump.
He's not in office.
I'd have been like, did Trump really just say Negro in a speech? Like, I would have said the exact same thing for any politician, any white politician. Just because it doesn't offend you, Soonie, specifically.
No, it doesn't offend a large demographic of black people. Do you know how many black folk? I grew up saying Negro.
The internet.
Everybody in my city said Negro.
When I was growing up, like I said a joke in school, I didn't even know it was offensive.
White people said it.
Why? My joke in third grade I told was, why are black people taller than white people? Because they're Negroes. Like.
So
like nobody took offense to that when I said it in third grade. They some people laughed at it because like it was a stupid joke. It's not the same kind. It's not the N-word. It is a word.
I don't understand how. So if you think as a white dude, I can go into a group of black people and just be like, what's going on, Negroes? Like that's something that you think
you are using it out of context, bro. Like use it in context, which is what Joe Biden did. He was talking about a specific.
No, he made a gap. He didn't speak. No, see, this is the problem.
I would have done, dude. I would have
wasn't able to articulate. He didn't say this is somebody from the Negro Leagues of baseball and then create context around. He literally made a gaffe, and he said, "I took on the spirit of a great American Negro." and I picture myself as being 50 years old.
What?
He didn't.
So what? If no black person spoke up, then why are white people speaking up?
Oh, black.
He was trying to say great. He was.
And what side are they on? What side are they on? Besides the talking heads,
just because they're
Brandon
left,
Tatum.
Hold on. Just because they're a Democrat doesn't mean a black person can't be offended. Like
pull up a black person right now that is making as much noise as white conservatives. Go ahead.
It's really much ado about nothing at all. It's
exactly.
Really.
So
there's nothing to be upset about.
This is the president of the United States of America using a term that hasn't been used by white people in 30 years. So I want to ask the question: what if I used it in context? And I'm hanging out with a whole bunch of black dudes at the barbershop, and I'm like, what was the name of that one great Negro guy again? The great
W.B. Du Bois? No. W.B. Du Bois sucks. Booker T. Washington's where it's at.
So I think again, Christine's you're not understanding. I'm not offended by it. I think this is another example of how our president has no ability to control his mouth on a regular basis and is making these drastic as he said, it's a gaffe. It is a mistake, but it is a mistake where you are losing a racist.
He didn't even write this speech.
No,
somebody wrote this.
Dude, the great African American.
Can I finish the thought before?
Go ahead.
He didn't write this speech.
Why not?
Okay. And the fact that all of you are sitting here complaining is what the left wants you to do.
Do
Somebody wrote that
You
speech.
are the one that's
Somebody
complaining, though.
put-
That's the
Soonie,
How
I
are
want
you
not all
funny
of
thing
us, please.
None of
Not
us
all
are
of us.
complaining about
Hold on,
it.
I got a question
All of
for
us are
Soonie.
saying it's
Wait,
This is crazy, bro.
contextually
I
correct in
number
a
one,
way.
I wouldn't be talking about it if other people weren't talking about it. Don't play me like I'm the only one bringing this up.
So I'm asking the question: if do you, first off, Soonie, do you think the speechwriter really had that in the speech?
Of course, they know
No
you are going to
chance.
react to it. Come
There is
on.
no chance that it was.
So he
in
just
the
automatically
teleprompter.
said, I'm going to put this in there. Once again, speculation, and you're interjecting how you feel onto somebody else.
No,
You have
I
no
would
clue.
bet my life that there is no way the speechwriter said the great Negro before that.
Pitcher.
Okay.
He was split between saying the great Negro League pitcher Satchel Paige and the great pitcher from the Negro League Satchel Paige. He switched it halfway through what he was saying.
Exactly.
And it ended up, it just came out. It just, like, people do that. I could see myself doing that. Like, it's just
But
flip
you
a thought.
correct it right away. You're young enough to correct it right away. You go, the great, oh, my bad. My fault. The great pitcher. And you have to correct it. He made it seem like it was just part of his speech. It's an error. It's a gaffe. And it's an issue because he's the president of the United States of America.
And we're just
Okay.
hunting.
So,
at this point.
let me-
Sharks
I
throwing blood in the water at
haven't
this
chimed
point.
in on this yet, so let me chime in.
Go
So
ahead.
I get what you guys are talking about. I get it, Soonie. I see what you're saying too. Because it goes into the same conversation about not bringing racism into things that we already
Exactly.
discussed earlier. I get
Exactly.
it. I understand it. I also, the part that I don't like about it is I grew up in a very different way. I was told that that word is not acceptable, period.
Exactly.
End of story. And so I never used it. I would never use it. I even felt weird when I read this to my boss the other day when I was trying to explain this to him. And I said it and I was like, what? I said this word? But all in all, what it's coming down to is people all come from different areas and what is acceptable. I also hold the president, I don't care who it is, to a higher standard than I hold myself. And that is because he's running the country. And my standard is that word is not acceptable because that's how I've grown up. And that's how I look at this situation right now is no, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to see it. If Donald Trump can get crucified for eating a freaking taco on Cinco de Mayo and he's racist for that, why isn't this? And that's the part that I'm looking at is
Because we're not on the left.
Hypocrisy is high right now. High.
Because we're logical, we're reasonable, we're rational. That's why.
Okay.
But again,
you cannot talk about Satchel Paige without mentioning the fact that Satchel Paige was in the Negro Leagues. He was one of the greatest pitchers of all time. And the great failing in Satchel Paige's career was that he was not allowed to play anywhere but the Negro League. Satchel Paige is famous for being the greatest Negro League pitcher because you must if it is racist, then it is important to mention that that's what the league was called because that's exactly what it is.
Kevin, what did you say
without it?
What did you not say during that whole diatribe? What did you not say once?
Well,
you never said
I didn't slip up. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day,
that's what I'm saying. You said he was a great Negro League pitcher. That is a true statement. But to say the great Negro is a complete
pitcher
issue.
Wow.
Soonie, I'm with you on this one. Like,
come on, bro. This is total hogwash. Well, he said the great Negro. So freaking what? So what?
So point me to an example, Soonie,
man?
where this is acceptable in community. Because look,
period. I don't care if you said it. I don't care if Casey said it. I don't care. If you wanted to refer to me as this was probably one of the greatest Negroes I've ever met. You are literally saying this is probably one of the greatest black women I've ever come across.
But why would we use
this word was
acceptable?
Word? Do you know when this word was even stopped in its use?
I have no idea.
Yeah, during the Obama years.
No,
that's
this is
different.
how I know you guys are not attached to black history. It was not. It had nothing to do with Obama. It had to do with Stokely Carmichael, who said, "I don't want to be attached to slavery, so call me black."
Yeah. That's fair.
That is the only time it switched.
Yeah, and it switched, and it caused.
Here's an article I just put in.
But there was a whole demographic of black people in the '60s.
Unequivocally, you cannot.
I don't care about Obama
while you're in office.
I don't care about Obama. Since when do you agree with what Obama said when it fits a narrative?
I don't.
No, it's policy.
I agree that there is a
so
standard
you can legislate what the fuck people say.
And no,
Are you serious?
So what you don't know maybe is if you legislate.
What I don't know.
I don't know. Well, we said it in our group chat.
So is it an educational
I'm telling you,
or
it was before Obama. You're quoting Obama when this word was changed by another black man.
I'm telling you,
you're not listening
to do with Obama.
Soonie, you're not listening.
Let me say something real quick. Yes. So you're talking about the original why it was switched, which it was switched societally, and it was essentially agreed upon by those that were not deemed quote unquote racist. And then Obama, because the way that the term was viewed, decided during his presidency to make the terminology Negro not allowed to be used in any piece of legislation because it was an antiquated term that is no longer used. So if the President of the United States of America at that time legislature, it shows how dated that terminology is and why it can't be used and why it's important for a president in a speech on Veterans Day to not make a mistake that big or at least not correct it while he's speaking.
Well, listen, Obama does not supersede the macro of black people that are okay with this word being used.
So that's where I guess I have a question.
He never will. And he never will.
When does the macro? So you're speaking as though you know the macro. I literally watched a live with you the other night.
I know my history.
Cedric came on and said to you specifically, you know what would happen if one of your white friends that you do these conversations with walked into a place full of black people and said the word Negro. You know what he articulated? The exact same argument.
And I disagreed with him too. What's your point?
About that not being an acceptable form of conversation.
I disagreed with him too.
But it would happen in a room of white liberals as well. It will happen with people that don't.
You're telling me what's not okay to say to a black person.
I'm not saying.
I'm telling you what I'm not okay to say to a black person.
Then don't say it. Then don't say it. Nobody asked you to say anything. I'm talking about the people who were complaining about the word. And everybody on this screen acting like there weren't people complaining is absurd. This was a topic. It was on mainstream media. It was everywhere. I watched Russo put up a video. I saw Casey put up a video.
Of course.
Well, I don't get it. I don't understand how my own mother isn't understanding what I'm trying to say.
Because like you're literally telling you guys are literally telling me black history.
Not once.
I'm telling you.
Told you black history. I'm telling you.
What you did though, because you said Obama said it's not okay, but I don't really care about Obama.
I care about the great. I'm giving multiple examples. So let me address this. The Negro Leagues are an era in time. They're called the Negro Leagues. That is how you erase it
because what? Because somebody else said it's erased. Look,
no, I'm saying to call it the Negro
I'm proud to be called Negro. Period.
That is an absolute false statement. Nobody is asking for history to be rewritten. We're asking for people to realize that right now in this political climate, that by asking people to call you Negro, what you're doing is you're effectively doing the same thing.
Stop telling Negro what she's saying.
Exactly. Thank you. You're telling me what I'm doing by wanting to be called Negro.
No, I think, Soonie, you're allowed. If you want to be called Negro, that's just fine. I'm saying that the predominant, you know what? I don't even say predominant. There is a large percentage. I don't know if it's over 50%. I'm not going to make it up. I believe that it's a big percentage would not be okay with me as a white male coming up to them and saying it's using the terminology Negro because it's such an old, antiquated term that's associated with old racist guys.
Well, Anthony, in order for that to be, you have to make the argument that we still exist in times, because there actually was a time when Stokely Carmichael was 100% correct. That word needed to go away. That time is no longer here. So unless you're suggesting we are still in that time where Negro is the same word that it was, then and how are you also going to hold the argument that we don't exist in a system of a system that has systemic racism and all these other things?
So what's the proposal? Do we reinstitute it? Is that how we refer to people?
So yeah, do we bring back the term?
Is that what we do? Because the point here is simply one thing. We're pointing out that there's some hypocrisy in the statement, and there seemingly is a fight over the context of, well, people should call me Negro. Well, I don't think that the general community feels like that's okay.
I don't care what you guys think.
But that's the thing.
The ones that aren't going to think it are okay are going to be the ones that still think we live in a systemically racist society.
Thank you.
I'm going to end this conversation. We're going to move to the next one. And Soonie, you can reply. You can respond if you like.
I want to hear what Soonie had to say about that.
I just said Soonie can respond. Soonie can respond if she likes. Here's the deal, Soonie, because you're okay with it and you're thinking that everything is focused on you and the subject. We have an audience. You have an audience. It's
predominantly white. Point that out.
Cool. And honestly, the predominantly white people are going to listen to what you say, but ultimately across the board for the bigger speech that is society, you're not speaking for society, you're speaking for yourself. You are allowed to feel however you would like to feel, but across the board societally, white people can't go up to a black person. So unless you want to start a campaign bringing back the term negro, I'm sorry, it's considered faux pas. You're not allowed to say it in societal context. There are still rules that make our country tick and how we do things. If that were to change, cool. But in the day and age that we are in, just because you are okay with it, which is a very self-centered way of looking at the world,
now
just
I'm
because you are... No, I'm saying the way you're looking at it. You're not listening. The way you're looking at it is a self-centered way of looking at the world. You have to look at the greater context, the greater picture. And because you're okay with it doesn't mean that everybody is okay with it.
Yeah, well, just to add to that, Soonie, and then I'll let you go real quick because I haven't really... My big emphasis with it, like you categorize me saying that I think it's racist, but my biggest thing is I want the hypocrisy to be gone. But I also was told that word was not acceptable, and I also feel that it is not from growing up. And that's why I would expect something different at his level, that it wouldn't be used. But that could be the way I'm raised because I was raised differently, and that is it. And so when you say that I'm saying it's racism and all of that, no, I want it treated fairly and equally across the board, no matter what is done, because it definitely, if Trump said it, the world would be on fire.
And I'd have gone off on him too, because it's in this day and age, in this society, it's not acceptable, in my opinion.
It's all coming from the way I was raised, and I don't think that word's acceptable. But that's okay. That's just fine.
My concern is that in the greater context is that we are using again another word to justify identity politics. We are all Americans. We all believe in fundamental freedoms, liberties, and rights. If people want to call themselves a specific word, go ahead. But you ain't going to make me do it, and you aren't going to make me feel bad for not wanting to do it. And this is where the conversation rubber meets the road, is that you can't tell me how to feel about it, and I can't tell you how to feel about it. The truth is that we both have things in common that are much bigger, much greater, and it happens to be the American spirit. And if we're going to sit here and mince and dice words over about what you want to be identified as, then we're just playing into the hands of identity politics, which is exactly what the left wants. And we're doing it to their tone and to their key. We don't have to. We can simply say, you know what, that was a gaffe. It's hilarious. We don't think it's funny in the same way that we do a joke. We think it's hilarious in the sense that it shows a tremendous amount of potential hypocrisy. And if people can't see that, I can't open your eyes to it. But I can simply say, is I see it. I see a problem with it, and I don't agree. That doesn't make me a bad person. It makes me somebody who is aware of the surroundings in which I live. That's it. We're all Americans, and if we're going to use Negro or we're going to use black, whatever the word is, what we're doing,
or in this case, great picture,
the entire idea of identity politics. Until we can stop doing that, this is still a problem.
Soonie, wrap it up on this one, then we'll go to the next one.
Listen, none of what you guys are saying is my point. I never said you should be forced to say it. I never said anybody should walk around and say it. What I did say was people making a big deal out of Joe Biden was ridiculous, and I will stand behind that. I never once told either one of you to go around and say Negro. I never once did. Never once. So you're taking this personal and attaching it to yourself.
None of us are
when I'm talking to Eazy-E. I never said I was going to force. I never said I wanted you to. I never once said.
What's personal about me saying to you? I disagree. I disagree fundamentally that we can't call out these things when we find them hypocritical. What you're talking about is, well, the power of the word, and we shouldn't be focused on the word. I agree with you. There's no disagreement fundamentally. But if we can't call out hypocrisy when we see it, then we're all going to be blind for forever. That's the problem with the situation that I see that you're presenting. is that you can't.
And
We
I don't
can't
have
even
anything
say
else to say because I'm trying to finish and I keep getting cut off. So let's move on to the
Soonie,
next subject.
you cut me off 5 times. You cut off Eric. Eric's
You
cut
just
you off.
gave me the floor.
Yeah,
you
you
literally
did.
just
You got
said
cut off.
talk.
Soonie, we've been cutting each other off the whole time. Don't do that.
You literally just gave me the floor to wrap it up. What do you like?
And I'm still giving you the floor to wrap it up.
We can move on. We can move on.
Go ahead.
All I'm saying is it's not a big deal. It's really not. He used it in context. Cool. I don't have a problem with it.
Soonie, I've been on your side this whole time. I just want to point that out.
I don't need anybody on my side, but like I'm literally speaking for a lot of Black people that really don't care. They really don't care. Most people take pride in being called that. I take pride in where I've potentially came from. That word was used. Like the etymology of this word goes back to the 1400s, where it was somebody took it and turned it negative. Then I said, okay, well, we can't use that anymore. Somebody took this word, turned it negative. Okay, we can't use this anymore. We've cycled through so many names on how to refer to Black people. And one day it's going to get to the point where you can no longer say Black.
I mean,
one day it's going to get there.
That's why African American exists.
We're back, but again, now African American is, and I agree with you. And it's one of those things. It's like you can't say African American now it's Black, and then now it's person of color. If you just said person of color 20 years ago, that was racist. I agree. The way that the identity politics behind the terminology of what you refer to a Black person as has gotten absolutely ridiculous. The one thing I will say is the term Negro has been canceled for a long
identity
time.
Politics.
But you know what?
I'm not playing identity politics. Like I don't even believe
I didn't say you
in
were. I didn't say you were.
I'm responding to Eazy-E. This has nothing to do with identity politics. Nothing.
All right. Let's go. Let's say. All right, we got 2 left. Do you want to talk about repealing the 19th? Let's do repeal the 19th because I think the LGBTQ should be the shortest, but also might be the most contentious. I didn't know anything could be more contentious after that last one. Let's go to your belief on repealing the 19th. When you say that all the time, what do you mean by it, Soonie?
It's a call to action for women to see that half of the time that they're thinking or functioning in life, they're delusional and irrational. If women never voted, Republicans will never lose a race.
But
statistics proved me right.
Conservatism.
So do you believe that women should not have when you say that, that's essentially, I mean, there's more to the 19th Amendment, obviously, but do you also believe that do you truly believe women should not have the right to vote?
Huh? Say that again?
I said there's a lot more to the 19th Amendment, but by saying repeal the 19th, do you firmly believe that women should not have the right to vote?
I mean, I wouldn't mind it if they didn't. I'm good. I got my husband. It really wouldn't bother me if they took the 19th Amendment away.
So, what the hell is that bouncing?
Do you think that really infringes on equality that everybody wants in the world today?
No, because it's never going to happen. It's a hashtag and a catchphrase.
Okay.
Women didn't want equal opportunity. They wanted equal treatment. But there's a reason why women weren't in the draft. There's a reason why women aren't in the jobs that are most dangerous by far and away. There's a reason. That's the problem with what feminism shifted into, is it stopped actually becoming about equality. It turned into this vicious desire to dominate what is designed or called the patriarchy. It was, if there was true equality, the minute the 19th Amendment went, in fact, it shows great ignorance to think it was the women's right to vote was not even the most popular among women at the time, because a lot of women didn't want the responsibilities that came with having the right to vote.
But that's probably changed. So there's obviously a lot of flack in the comment box. So before I go, I want you to clarify more on what effect. I know it's become kind of a funny thing, but I'm trying to figure out if you are actually serious about it.
Serious about repealing the 19th? I can't repeal the 19th. I literally just said it's a catchphrase. It's something to catch somebody's attention. And when I say repeal the 19th, usually somebody's like, why? And I'm like, look, these are the reasons why. And they're like, oh, I can get with that statement, like repeal the 19th, because people understand what I'm saying. I'm not trying to take anybody's rights away. But it's literally just the catchphrase.
So is voting not a right?
No.
I think it's a privilege. No, I do not think it's a right.
Privilege, 100%.
I don't think everybody should be able to vote.
Yeah.
We
right.
can feel that way, but according to the Constitution and the amendments, it is a right.
Yeah, it doesn't mean it's correct to say it.
It's civil duty.
Oh, okay. So we can say that about the First and Second Amendment?
Yeah, but you have to be able to back up what you're saying. The reason why you can defend the First Amendment as a right is if no one else existed, you would still be able to do it. If there's one person is solo, two people is a government. And if there's just two people, there is no votes, right? It still comes down to it just still comes down to force, but you can still think whatever you want and you can still defend yourself from that person. It's positive and negative rights. The right to vote, I'm sorry, but if you're not contributing to the system, you shouldn't be able to vote in the system. Under what I think, I would not be allowed to vote.
So
do you think only women are not contributing to the system, Kevin?
Yeah.
49% of America doesn't contribute to the system.
But that's not exclusive to women.
No, it's not. I don't think anybody should be allowed to vote if they do not contribute. I would not be allowed to vote, and I'm fine with that because you know what? Especially with the system we have today, you're voting on where money that is not yours, but it was taken at gunpoint from someone else is going to end up going, and I don't think that's right for me. I don't think I should be allowed to determine how much money you're allowed to take from someone. I don't think I should be allowed to determine tax increases. I don't think I should be allowed to vote on increases on benefits for me that I do not have to pay into and will require coercion to acquire.
What about in the instance for, like Christine says, my husband says you only vote if you're working. What about for the person that, let's use 2021 as an example. Somebody loses their job because of government mandates on the V word, and they want to make sure they ensure policy, and they're currently out of work. They should not be allowed to vote in that case?
No, they have a right to work. It's the government that's in the wrong.
No.
So how do you vote for it?
Yeah, like you are literally.
They were contributors to the system, and the government told them not to be.
I am so astonished that you're doing this as a libertarian. You are literally putting your ability to vote in the government's control.
No, I'm not putting it in the government's control. I'm saying that I should not have a right to have a say in the system if I am not contributing to the system. If I am only taking from the system, then it's the people that are contributing that should have all the say. This should not be the case that 49% of America can vote.
I get that part. I'm addressing what Russo, what he mentioned, that scenario. We proved last year the government can shut down people's jobs and take away your livelihood. And then that would have taken away your ability to vote because it was an election year.
Yeah, the government is not allowed to do it. We allowed the government to do that. That was not something the government, but that just because the government did something wrong does not prove my ideals wrong as well. Because if my ideals were the ones being, you think in a system where where only people that contribute get to determine, there would also not be the case. We're basically in Ancapistan at that point. So like my wet dreams have all come true and the government as we know it has collapsed. So therefore, I wouldn't have to worry about that because we'd be living under a libertarian government to begin with in order for that to happen. So.
I got to apologize real quick. There is a hornet that is buzzing the tower, and if anybody knows how I feel about hornets, I am deathly afraid of them. Anyway, so if anybody's wondering why I'm running around in circles.
He's a beta!
Anyways, continue. I'm listening. I'm just also trying to...
You're good. I get what you're saying. Like Soonie, so repeal the 19th. You're saying this is a catchphrase with no intentions of actually doing it, but you are actually promoting repeal the 19th which could cause a movement to move in that direction to repeal it. Would you want that to happen?
Honestly, it wouldn't bother me either way.
Okay.
It wouldn't bother me.
No. It's a good
do you understand what happened during the women's suffrage movement?
I very much so understand.
So then explain to me why you would want to take away that right.
I already did. I made it very clear in the beginning of my opening.
I didn't hear it. I must have missed it.
Yeah.
I just said, women, I'm a woman. Okay? We are emotional.
What?
We are irrational. Oftentimes, we do not think logically, which is why I believe we need to rely on our husbands who are leaders to help us in a right direction. So if they took my rights away, if my movement triggered something, I have a great man, a leader to speak for me in a voting booth.
So,
in
essence,
hold on, Eric. Do you see the irony? Do you see the irony in the fact that you are speaking on a platform suggesting political concepts, ideologies, speech, which you do a great job with? Do you find the irony in the fact that you believe that other women, and including yourself, shouldn't really have the right to do that?
Do I see the irony of talking about not being able to vote? Sure.
Okay.
She's allowed to give her opinion.
I don't understand why people are so sensitive about this. It's literally something fun. It's a catchphrase.
Part of it is you
it's
generalize
a catchphrase, man.
in a tremendous way.
Take the 16th with it.
You're generalizing so.
But you're not a woman, so why are you even offended?
Maybe he is.
Specifically because I know women who don't think like you do, who think on their own 2 feet.
But we're all entitled to our opinions. That's why we have the First Amendment.
And I agree. But my big issue is the as I said, the irony.
If the 19th Amendment didn't exist, you couldn't give your opinion. Like this is the irony.
Do you think I would honestly care? I would not care. I'm one person. And I can't vocalize something that I think is hilarious. And I think it's funny to point out when I see women talk about irrational, very disturbing things. And I say, this is why we need to repeal the 19th. And 9 times out of 10, the majority of the women that follow me, especially my Instagram following, they are the ones in my comment section hashtagging repeal the 19th because they understand my sentiments behind it.
Even when it's based
funny.
On stupid ideas.
It's funny as fuck.
I just let my idea be stupid. I really don't give a shit how you feel.
No. The thing is, you're actually saying it's not your idea. You're saying it's just a statement. So, but then you also back it up. So my question is, again, the very first thing I asked: do you firmly believe that if you had the ability to snap your fingers, do you believe that you should not have the ability to vote? Are you okay with you losing that right?
I've already answered that.
And you're okay with your husband speaking for you, and that's what
Absolutely.
I get back. That's what I get back.
What if your husband totally disagrees? What if your husband beats the shit out of you? What if your husband doesn't?
Why are we trying to appeal to emotion here?
No, these are valid questions. You understand that 50% of marriages that end in divorce are because they get violent with each other.
Okay, well then, if it bothers you guys so much, I just won't say it anymore. There.
No, it's this. That's not
the conversation.
The point of the conversation is to learn more about.
Nobody can ask you a question, Soonie.
You've been asking me questions. What are you talking about?
I'm asking you if statistically speaking, what you're saying is true and men can speak for women, then what we're having is a conversation about men who don't truly speak for women. Because in this country at this point in time, based on divorce statistics, men are not articulating well for what their women want at home.
Men don't initiate divorce, women do. And half the time it's for financial reasons or just because I'm not happy. Yeah, women initiate divorce.
We have an issue of incredibly effeminate men, and as soon as women come up,
go fact check me right now. No. Stop the show. Go fact check me right now.
Are you saying predominantly more, like 60-40, or are you saying
the majority of divorces are initiated by women?
Okay, so that's different. That is a very different statement than what was said.
Well, no, you got to look into why that is. So women participate, and again, my mother was a great feminist, blah, 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 whatever. I'll do my standard defense. It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is that birth control causes women to be more attracted to effeminate men. What happens when
you get married? Thank you.
Women
we're agreeing
come
with
off
you.
their birth control, realize that they married a white college-educated liberal man who's weak and effeminate and is not actually doing what is necessary to take care of them in life, and want to get out of the divorce because they're not happy. Means I chose the wrong man. They chose a man that can't do what men are supposed to do, which is provide and take care and provide safety and actually.
We're not arguing that. The statement that was said. We're not arguing that. The statement that was said was women initiate divorce. That was the statement.
I'm telling you,
that's an absolute
on why it makes perfect freaking sense. Because
I know, but when we're saying women initiate divorce, I know that's not true. It could be majority, and I believe that. But when we say an absolute statement of women initiate divorce, that's not true, and that's the part that caused confusion here. That we're like, whoa. Like, because I have one of my good friends that I bowl with even on Wednesday nights, that he had to file for the divorce because his wife cheated on him.
Every once in a while that happens. I was in the Army. That happened constantly. Come back from deployment and your wife's
that's
sleeping
the
with
whole
your
difference in the debate.
40%. It's yes. There's a huge difference, and this is where words matter. There's a difference between a majority or the predominant. Like, there's a lot more women that initiate. That's why this is the importance of why we're talking about why saying repeal the 19th matters. Words matter, and by saying women initiate, you're essentially assuming or stating that all women are the reason why marriages dissolve.
No, you interjected that because I clearly stated the percentages, and I said majority of the time it's a woman.
You corrected yourself, Soonie.
Yeah,
exactly.
Not until after
which
we
is
asked.
What I just said.
Like, so what's the point? Like, she corrected.
You guys are nitpicking at ridiculous things. I corrected it. We're still talking about it. When I literally just said, people in the comment section are agreeing. The majority of the time, it is a woman who initiates divorce, and I gave the two top reasons.
We're agreeing as well, but that wasn't the original statement. We had to get to this point for you to.
No wonder you were pissed off when Biden said the great Negro.
Words matter 100%. I'm a professional speaker. Of course, words matter. And all of you guys are too, including Soonie, which is why words matter.
Nothing matters. Everything is
comment right here is exactly.
Once again, we're going to the extreme.
Okay.
We're talking about the minority of the minority of reasons people get divorced versus the macro.
Yeah,
Look up statistics as to the majority of the reasons why people are divorcing. This is why we run into friction. People like to bring up things that I'm not even talking about. Not once do I think a woman should stay in an abusive relationship. I don't think that's fair. No woman should stay in something that's abusive. That's a given. It's a given. We don't even need to talk about that.
Yeah. Of course not. That's obvious.
It's an appeal to emotion. We all know that that's a reason that women get divorced. What does that have to do with the majority, the macro?
Yeah, the financial and the personal.
It has nothing to do with the macro.
So what is the hope that comes out of repeal the 19th then? I think that's where people
that women think about what I'm saying instead of being so emotional behind what I'm saying. Oh, why don't you ask me? Hey, what do you mean behind that? Open dialogue.
Yeah. So this is where it gets hard. I literally was just trying to ask you a question and you cut it off. So the question becomes is what you're saying, is it just for Firebrand? Is it just for clicks? Is it just for likes? Is it just for continuity of brand? That's okay. That's fine. But at some point when you have to explain what does repeal the 19th ultimately end in, you have to talk to the statistics of divorce. If the statistics of divorce show that men are not contributing what their women want, then the 19th being instated and staying instated is absolutely fundamentally necessary. What you're talking about requires for women to trust the men, and what we have is divorce statistics that don't show that men are doing what women want them to do. And so therefore, the 19th becomes incredibly important to the individual population.
We have removed the consequences of choosing a bad man, so women just choose. There's no thought process anymore.
There's no thought process.
That's not what the conversation is, right? So if we're gonna, that's
what her
fine,
conversation
and I agree with that sentiment. But let's get to that point then. When we ask what's the point, that's the answers we're looking for, is what is the point? If it's, well, we need to have better choice in partners, then let's say that unequivocally. But when we just put blanket statements out there and we have no context to them, and then the answer is, well, it's because, and that becomes confusing and convoluted to a majority of people.
Let's just walk this back here. The 19th goes into effect. The 20th follows not far behind. Trying to address your issue, Eric, of abuse. It was the main thing that pushed for it was women talking about abusive husbands. That leads into 21st, which gets it repealed. What happens in the 1930s? The emotional liberal left starts taking control. Bigger government, safety nets, all these emotional policies start coming into place. And because the government expanded to its emotional maximum, you start getting stuff like the war on poverty. You start getting people going door to door because the government has been allowed to grow so much because emotion has become one of the driving factors behind policy all of a sudden. Because unfortunately, once you add women into the mix, they vote 2-to-1 liberal expanded government. That's just how women vote, unfortunately. A lot of men are voting that way now too. And so the fact of the matter becomes that men vote conservative at the same clip, but there are more women than men in this country. And so what we saw was an expansion of the emotional policies coming into play following it, which you can tie directly into the culture of women no longer having to make choices about the men they choose, no longer having to face the consequences, making it easier to get out of these marriages so you can marry 6, 7, 8 guys before you find the right one, rather than choosing the one that's actually going to take care of you. It's not necessarily about the fact that women vote. It's not talking about the cultural side effects and the stuff that came along with it that we need to address as a nation and as a people. That's my take on it, at least.
I have one last question on this topic, then we're going to move on. Your concept of the 19th is essentially to get people thinking, and you said it in the beginning, and I kind of want to hear it again because we've had a lot of, there's been a much more breadth to the topic. You're not necessarily meaning 100% you believe that that's the way it should be, but you're getting people thinking. What are you wanting them to think about again? What is the thought process?
We need to hold women accountable for their decisions, period. They make very irrational, emotional decisions. We talked about divorce. We talked about voting. We can even go into abortion. I had a conversation with a young lady, and I'm like, do you know what abortion essentially is? Well, I made a mistake, so I could just go erase it. So do you think murderers should get off? Well, no. Well, when a pregnant woman is killed and they're charged with double homicide, what do you think about that? Well, that's fair. They killed something. So you are literally going to an abortion clinic to kill something. Well, no, I'm not. It's just a use for birth control. You know what I told her? This is why we need to repeal the 19th, because you're not thinking logically. If she were to just say, look, I understand it's murder, but I'm still going to make this decision, I would have never said anything to her. But because the most women do not think logically, I'm admitting this myself. Anytime I get on here and say something, I normally go talk to my husband and I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? Does this make sense? Am I making sense at all? And I will come on here and talk about it.
That's the great part about the two genders, is the ability to utilize the different strengths of men and strengths of women. And I think in the end, there is a level of equality there. And I'm gonna bring up Jay's comment. I think abortion is a weird, not a weird topic. It's a different topic to bring up. But at the same time, if you don't think there isn't men that aren't suggesting abortions at the same time, it's I don't know.
Men and women want them for different reasons. Men don't want to have to deal with it, and so they can encourage a woman. It's a weak man that encourages a woman to get an abortion. But the fact of the matter is,
sorry to cut you off, Kevin. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
When I say Black people need to stop committing crimes, you know exactly who I'm talking about. I don't have to break it down and be like, well, I'm talking about these Black people. When I talk about certain people that are causing destruction to this country, you don't ask me, hey, which Black people are you talking about? Well, hey, which people are you talking about? It's inferred. I never grouped all women together. That statement is absurd. Who in their right mind would say this is all women? I said the majority like 10 times now.
So what gives you the right to be the judge, jury, and executioner who doesn't think who thinks a different way than you?
How am I being the judge, jury, and executioner when I'm just stating my opinion?
No, and I get that, but your opinion carries weight because our opinions carry weight. People watch us. So when you say that I'm not talking to all women, I'm talking to the dumb women.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We need to address the fact that
I don't understand why we have to coddle women. Yeah. That's a problem.
No.
They need to be held accountable 100% of their stupid decisions that they make. Women make stupid decisions.
And men don't.
They do.
Yeah, no, men
We're
do
not
too.
talking about men though.
Yeah.
But why do we have to share blame? This is a common thing what people do. When I start talking about women, well, men do it too. You know what happens when I speak to a Black person? I'm like, look, we need to fix these things. This is crazy. We can't keep doing this. Well, white people do it too.
But Soonie,
we're not talking about white people.
But Soonie, you're talking about revoking a person's right to do something, which therefore does matter if it is meant. Like if you're saying if they're dumb, they shouldn't have a right to do something. If it's a man that's dumb, he shouldn't have a right to do something. It's got nothing to do with genders. Then it's just saying if you believe somebody is wrong, then they don't have a right to vote or do something. It just happens the 19th Amendment is women's suffrage and the ability for women to vote.
People are stupid when they do stupid things, but yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to change my stance.
I'm not asking
something that
I'm trying to get
what you're making. It's not necessarily. She's not talking about repealing the 19th, and I apologize, Soonie, if I misquote you, but it's more of we have to address what came along with it. The fact that now emotion can be weaponized within policy to expand the scope of the government, to destroy our culture, to allow policy and culture to intermix to a point where it removes, like the fact that we hail single mothers as these great things. And it's like, we never ask, well, are you single because something tragic happened to your husband, or because are you single mother because you slept with like 6 different men that where 5 of them are in prison, drug dealers? We're not, it's the fact that now you prop it up. It's a meta joke on the fact that like, well, some people argue that women are irrational and they don't really think clearly. So when a woman does something that clearly fits into that mold, Soonie is referring to the fact that this gives credence to people who want to say repeal the 19th. And it's a joke. And it's something that gets the conversation rolling.
But you got to understand, if people aren't there for the whole conversation, statements can be very, 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 very dangerous. And honestly, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter if how a single mother became a single mother. If they're a good mother to their child, it doesn't really matter how they got in that position.
Well, you need to be able to defend your position so that when someone who takes it out of context tries to attack you with it, you can defend your position, because that's what matters. If you want to defeat
easiest way for a single parent mother to defend her position is by saying she loves her child and takes care of her child. It's got nothing to do with how she had that.
So you love your child so much you took away the gift of a good father? That's how much you love your child? You rob them of the pleasure of a good father, of the support,
or save them from the displeasure of a bad father, or save them from abuse.
So you chose the wrong man to sleep with?
Wow.
Yeah.
No accountability, man.
None at all. It's like all of those. Men propose, women dispose. Men can't have sex unless a woman says yes. Men are the ones that
woman
want
controls
sex.
access to sex. Absolutely.
So Kevin, we're going to continue with you on this one. So you're saying that all women should stay married, and if they have children, and they have to keep up. So explain to me exactly what you said.
I'm saying I have no sympathy for you if you chose a bad man. If you chose a man that was abusive.
Who's asking for sympathy?
You are. Essentially,
you are the one, because I'm the one saying you made a bad decision. I don't have to support your bad decision. You robbed your child you are not a good mother. You robbed your child of a good father. You decided that you were going to sleep with a man who would never be able to be a child's father. You said, I don't care. I care more about the sex than your father. I care more about the sex than the man who is going to raise you and teach you to be a good, honest contributor to our society. I decided if I have a daughter, I robbed you of the chance to learn what a man's love looks like, so that when you go into the world, you know what to look for from a man.
Yes.
This is some of the
so while we're all talking about this subject, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate. While we're all stuck talking about repealing the 19th and nomenclatures for skin color and whatever other topic we're discussing right now, who knows what's happening in the 2022 election right now? Who's looking at their local elections? Who's voting? Who's out there
and
popping up?
I do want to say, I
putting
do
in the time to. It's a serious question, because
I honestly, Eric, I've got no idea the bearing on this topic. I want to go back with Kevin. We're not done here yet, because people are confused about our. I don't know how I misspoke to think that I'm playing victim in any way, shape, or form.
So let me put it this way: if a woman marries a man that presents himself to be a good father, and through the years of their marriage he turns into an abuser, or it happens after that, but he presented himself, that's a different scenario than you married a man, or you had sex with a man who was a drug dealer, or you had sex with a man who treated you like shit, called you bitch, called you all these other things, or you decided that you were gonna go off and do one night stands, you were gonna sit on Twitter or on Tinder and just swipe right and go sleep with those guys, and all of a sudden, boom, you've got a kid and the guy doesn't want to be around. That's your fault.
But what if she's not playing victim? What if she's loving her child and being a good single parent mother?
You know what? She's trying to rectify a terrible decision. But I don't know if it's
have you ever made a bad decision, Kevin?
Oh yes, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And at the end of the day, you know what they were? They were bad decisions. And I only learned when I acknowledged they were bad decisions.
And most women will actually say, God, that was a bad decision, but I have a beautiful child out of it. I'm glad that I have this and I raised not most.
Okay, cool. But that does not, that's her acknowledging her. She's taking a level of accountability. right? Would you say that a woman that acknowledges Soonie says that I made a bad decision, I shouldn't have done this to my child, and I'm sorry, but I'm still trying to love him? That's a different scenario than the woman that's just blames everything else, says that his father was just a piece of shit, deadbeat, just left, all this other stuff when she knew that stuff going in.
I'm not talking about that person either. Those are the people that are always being are being the victim. But there is a good percentage of single parent moms that are happy, loving, acknowledge their mistake, and have very healthy children that come out of it.
Yeah, that's the exception. That's not the rule.
Not the exception.
It is.
Yes,
not having a father is
hold on.
Not having a father.
No. I'm going to stop both of you because now you're talking about me. So if you're talking
about me too, so you don't. It doesn't matter. The macro, and I brought this to you the last time we had this conversation. Look at the Black community. 72% of all births are from a single woman. Look at the degradation of this community, starting when the government took over and kicked dad out the house. And tell me that doesn't bring credence to the fact that most single mothers do a grave disservice to their children.
I just want to present you with the scenario really quick, Anthony. Say that I have a gun to your head, and I say, you're going to go before this male prison here, and you get one question to ask them where you have to get at least 85% of them raising their hand, or you die. What question are you going to ask them that isn't, did you commit a crime?
Come again? What's the question?
You will get killed if you go into this all-male prison and you ask them a question to which less than 85% of the men in that building raise their hand for. The question you will ask them if you want to survive is, how many of you did not have a father? Raise your hand.
100%. So I'm going to go back to Soonie's point. I get what you're saying. It's also the community. So there is it's a whole different subject when you talk about Black single mothers in the context that you're referring to, Soonie, because you're talking about a community that does not poor education, a lot of crime in the neighborhoods, poverty more so than whites. I grew up in poverty and I'm white, but at the same time, I was in better areas, even though I was the one that was poor. But fact is, what you're talking about, Soonie, is not just a single parent mother. It's a whole community. It's a whole generation of people that did not raise good kids in a lot of areas. And yes, a lot of them had single parent moms. Agreed. But it is not an exception, as you're seeing people in the comment box saying, well, I was one of them. I was one of them. I was one of them.
They're the exception.
Yeah, they're conservative.
They don't represent the macro.
You have 126 people watching.
I don't care. There's 40 million Black folks, and there's how many white people? How many white people in the United States? No. How many total?
How many white people?
I mean, it's 64% of the population. So 64%.
Okay. So there's a large. We're talking about 127 people versus the macro.
This is not the macro, Soonie. You're wrong.
No, it's
there is.
Russo, you are.
Come on, bro.
Maybe in the Black community, you're talking about the macro, but across the board, you're essentially giving a death sentence to most people that are in a single parent home.
Obama said the same thing that I'm saying. Obama prison. He was not. He was talking about the United States.
Mm-hmm. He was talking about the fact that you have 87% at the time, 87% single motherhood rate in Black communities. You had. He's talking about the fact that it's just a simple question. Would you rather, do you think it's better for a child to have two parents or one?
I think it's better? I think it's better for a parent. I think it's better for a child to have loving parents. Parent or parents.
But you can have, guess what? If you have two parents, there's at least a 50% chance that one of them is going to love you. But if you have one parent, you bet you're hoping and praying that one is going to do it. But at the end of the day, part of the reason America is in the position we are is that 48% of young boys do not have any female influence at home, because 48% of young boys are being born to single mothers. And then they go to school where 78% of the staff is female. So not only do 50% of boys have no male influence at home, they then go to school and 8/10 of them have no male influence at school. And it is a horrible, horrible thing on a society when you remove the male influence on that many kids' lives. You're talking about at least 40%. At least 40% of young men nowadays do not have any male influence in their life.
I don't disagree with that statement.
That's not good. And that's a direct result.
I agree. There should be male influence 100%.
But like at the end of the day, you can't then question why it is that our country's going down this slide where everybody loves them some freaking emotional leftist politics and policy and Medicare for all and all this other stuff, and not acknowledge that the reason these emotional appeals in policy work is because 40% at minimum of boys have zero male influence at all in their life. That is a massive contributing factor.
I think it's significant. I think it's 40% positive male influence. There's a lot of male influence. Problem is, and again, we're talking about the Black community as a predominance of the issues with single parent. Actually, we're talking about the poverty-stricken communities with the single parent homes, which might I add, right now, it's not just poverty-stricken. You are looking at, I think the divorce rate is 56%. You can look at people that have children. And by the way, kids in homes that are with parents that should have gotten divorced are fucking miserable. Let me be very fucking clear.
Because then why do we promote the nuclear structure of a family and then shit on it and be like, well, you know, two-parent homes aren't there. They can be bad too. That like
they can.
So like, then why promote the nuclear family?
Because as a whole, in a higher percentage of cases, that is the way to go based on studies, based on research, etc. It is better to have a healthy two-parent home. I'm not saying.
Then how can you encourage the other?
What's that?
Then how can you not condemn? If you want to encourage one, you have to condemn the other. You can't say they're both good, but one's slightly better. Because people are going to be like, "Oh, so I'm okay to pick the other one."
Then you're asking for a utopian world where you don't think people don't end up becoming ugly to their children, or don't end up becoming hateful to each other, or don't end up not loving each other, or end up.
Nobody should promote any positive ideals because that would be hoping for a.
I still promote a two-parent home, but I sure as shit think the most important thing is loving a child. For fuck's sake,
yeah, it is. And the best way to show love to your child is to give them a good parent.
My mother loved me, but my mother also made terrible mistakes.
Yeah,
I
was left to so many different things because I didn't have my dad. I was dependent on one parent.
You were with an irresponsible mother. That's a difference.
Like, but it doesn't mean her mother couldn't love her.
Absolutely, but your issues are stemming from you just blamed your father when it had to do with your mother making mistakes.
I did not blame my father.
Go ahead, I'll let you finish.
There were things that happened to me because there was no other parent there to care for me while my mother was absent. You suffer in some sort of way when you just have one parent. Whether your mom loved you or not, you can love your kid all you want. I could love the three of my children so fucking much. But because I'm not providing them that responsible father, because I didn't make certain decisions as a woman, my children will suffer. That does not mean you don't love them. My mom loved me with all her heart, but I still suffered on the account of her decisions. I suffered greatly. There are so many kids that suffer because of irresponsible decisions. That's what this all is. It does not mean you don't love your kid. You can love your kid and them turned out completely fucked up because of things that happen out of your control.
Do you think two things can be true at once?
Can I finish?
If I can, let me just interject. Two things can be true at once. One is that not every kid who comes from a single parent household is going to be garbage and condemned to this reality that is being perpetuated. And second is that not every kid who comes from a happy home is also going to succeed in life. Those things can be simultaneously true at the same time. And we need to recognize that. And this is the division in the conversation is we're not recognizing that most people fall somewhere into the middle of this category. 99%. So
I had a direct statement directly to what she said. So let me ask it. So my question becomes, do you think, Soonie, if you had a father in the household, none of the bad things that happened to you would have happened?
Absolutely. My dad was
not in any way, shape, or form is that able to be proven, nor is that sensible.
You asked me a question that you already had an answer for.
I absolutely did because I knew how you were going to answer it. Which
that's
is why
ridiculous. My first of all, you don't know my father, so your assumption is BS.
Do you think that
my dad was actually?
Do you think the people that were in 2-parent homes that were abused or had bad things happen to them, do you think that is just a farce? Do you think it was because they had a crappy dad? Do you think what is it? Because it happens.
Because their parents, they weren't responsible. They weren't being adults.
It's not like they're flawless. It's
so
like
what would have made what would have made your case different? Just because your
My dad wanted to be there. My dad would have loved to take me when my mom had to work. My dad would have loved to step in certain areas when my mom had to do stuff. But my mother pushed my father out of my home. She pushed him away. So to say that I wouldn't have fared better, that's bullshit.
because
My dad loved me.
You wouldn't have fared better.
You just did.
Probably,
you just told me. No, you wouldn't have. You have no way of proving that.
No. You have no way of proving that what happened to you that hurt you would not have happened.
I do 100% because I wouldn't have been in those people's care. 100%.
Most likely, I'm assuming, Soonie, it was men that your mother brought into the home to replace her father.
My mom had men in and out.
Yeah.
But
so
it was family members. I was
your father being there would have completely negated that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Rousseau, the question then becomes: would you have suffered from? Because you can't. You know what? You can't guarantee that all of it wouldn't have happened. But if the question is, would you have suffered less? The answer is provably, objectively, yes. Well, there's nuance and mitigating circumstances in every situation. What it comes down to is you have to encourage where the statistics show you to encourage, which is you are 19 times more likely to end up in prison if you do not have a father than anywhere else. There are 48% of young men are growing up without fathers. That's an insane amount.
It's a skewed statistic because again, you're looking at poverty-stricken areas, which are already bound to happen anyways, and that's where most of the
Mexicans Hispanic people live in poverty-stricken areas, and they still do not outnumber us in crime. Nowhere near it.
Yeah.
They also are ultra Catholic and don't typically believe in marriage. So that statement right there, it says a lot of moms do push the dad out. Hold on, let me bring this up real quick. As you said, this seems the case in Soonie's case. A lot of moms push the dad out and they don't allow their kids to see the dad. So this again traces back to my very original statement about your mother. Your mother may have loved you, but she was irresponsible. This is not the case of all single parent mothers.
I never said all.
This is not the case.
Say it's a lot.
I never
said
all.
A lot more than 2-parent households.
Do you have any statistics to back that up, or is it all speaking in hyperbole?
Me?
Honestly, I do think it's a higher percentage. I would say that, but you're speaking for the whole. Like you're deeming it. These are not exceptions. These are a smaller percentage. There is a huge difference between exceptions that make it a rule and smaller percentage.
Well, let's just put it this way: 52% of boys are born into 2-parent households. That means 52 to 48. 52. That 48% goes to prison at 19 to 1, the rate of the other ones. And you can talk about cycles of poverty, but you can also talk about the reason why poor communities, why do people go to jail for marijuana possession? Because in poor communities where no one's telling you otherwise, you smoke your weed out on the fucking doorstep, you smoke it out on the porch in the open where everyone can see you. Where I was doing it when I was growing up was diving into the woods because I had a father at home that would beat my ass if he caught me. You couldn't do it out in front of the home. Those are things that are taught in 2-parent households, regardless of race, right? The black people I grew up with, very few and far between, did the same things as me in hiding. But if you went down to Crenshaw, if you went down to Compton, people were just smoking weed out on the freaking sidewalk and wondering why the cops were rolling up and searching them for weed.
Agreed. I agree on all that stuff. And we're still talking about, unfortunately, minority-stricken area, not just poverty, but minority areas, which again is the predominance of where the statistic comes from in prison, because prisons are predominantly African-American based on percentage, predominantly black, whatever you want to say, whatever word you want to use, predominantly that group who has been targeted over several decades and now is actually... I'm not gonna. There is no victim mentality on my mind for black people.
Kennedy now?
But no. I'm just saying. It's predominantly black, and the people that have been in prison for that whole cycle during the 1980s and during the 1990s were when there was truly systemic racism in this country, and there's single-parent households that deem from it. This is where the statistic comes from. Yes, do I agree that that 2-parent homes are healthier in more cases than not for children? Absolutely. But you're looking at the 19 to 1 percentage and not understanding the race behind it in the situation. As Soonie even talks about, there is such a high case in the African American Black community of single parent households, which therefore
they don't hold the women accountable.
Cool, agreed. I agree with holding them accountable to take care of their child, but I don't know where else to go. And yes, Angie, I do have a child.
Yeah, some of this has become kind of a circular argument because
it's a cycle.
What we want is we want a utopia, and we're not going to get it. And so what we have to understand is, two parent households are typically the best indicator of a child's individual success. That's a statistical truth. However, two things can be true at once, and that does not indicate that every child in every circumstance given any set of specific understanding of circumstances is going to succeed at all. So to disregard both things is both statistically, I suppose, sort of relevant, but pragmatically completely utopian in its ideal.
It's not utopian. The fact of the matter is prior to the Civil Rights Act, Black family had a single motherhood rate under 20%, and now it's up to 87%.
Why
right?
Did that
it's
happen?
Not a utopic vision.
Because of the government.
It is an addressal of what caused things to fail. What caused things to fail was people knocking on doors.
Look, hey, hold on. Go do some research on Black history. Go look at when the New Deal was put in place that rendered a majority of Black people unable to work. They had to rely on the government.
Yup.
So absolutely.
No, I agree that I 100% agree that the government and policy and the New Deal, you're 100% had a lot to do with the divorce rate in Black. I'm the one that's always talked about our history in the United States since the 1950s in systemic racism, which has brought the Black community to that point. I've always agreed with that. I'm not disagreeing with it. The question is, how do we fix it? And at the same time, this conversation was on repealing the 19th. That's how this topic came up. And in the end, we've spiraled it into abortion, race, single-parent households. I find that interesting. Ultimately,
I was just giving you instances where women don't necessarily think logically.
And I think a single parent, I don't know how. I think it's offensive that you think that a single parent mother who does a good job with her child. I'm not offended.
You're talking about the good ones. I'm not. I'm talking about the ones that leave their kids to their own vices.
Then I
know there are good single parents.
Then I'm talking about there's also bad groups of two-parent households.
That's a given.
What does it have to do with shitty women? Like I don't see the correlation.
Shitty women put themselves in these situations.
It is a significantly lower amount of bad parenting in two-parent households. It is so significantly lower amount that to argue that it is not the thing we should be encouraging above all is ridiculous.
Anecdotally, I'll tell you the people that I know in two-parent households are typically, true story, typically shittier than the ones raised by by any single-parent household, to be honest with you. So that's my anecdotal.
Single parent. We shouldn't promote the nuclear family anymore.
I still promote it, but I promote good parenting.
Why? You said your evidence suggests that single mothers are better. Anecdotally, single mothers are better.
But look, guys, again, circular argument here. The preponderance that both of these things cannot be true at once is where everybody is losing.
No, they can't.
Nobody's going to win that conversation. Anecdotal evidence is all anyone has here, except for the statistical truth of data, which is that two-parent households are the predicated truths to the best success for a child. That's something we do know, statistically speaking, is an average that is worked off of a bell curve for a preponderance of 100 years or better of information gathering. We're not arguing that, but we are simply saying is that two things can be true at once. And what we're getting in response is, fuck you. It doesn't make any sense.
You guys are painting by using the terminology of the exception that makes it a rule, and this is where I will end on this subject. You guys can answer afterwards, but it's kind of like how do I explain? It's kind of like a CRT creates a victim mentality for us to just pretty much say we can promote the idea of the nuclear family, but to pretty much say it is an exception the single parent, the kids that come out okay, it is an exception, is allowing a victim mentality of being like, I only have a mom, I only have this, and this is why I am the way I am.
Wow.
What?
I mean, if you take it that way.
So you're a victim if you want your dad. You're a victim if you're like, man, it sucks that I just have my mom and my dad's not around.
No, you're a victim. You're a victim if you use that to be a shitty person. You're clearly not listening to what I just said. You're a victim if you say, I turned out to be a drug addict, or I did this because I was in a single parent household. What you guys are talking about, prisoners, you're talking about people that grow up and continue to perpetuate the same stereotypes. You're saying, you're not talking about somebody that's like, man, I wish I had my dad. Different story. A lot can be said about people that are single. Man, I wish my dad was around. But perpetuating the fact that a single parent household turns somebody into a criminal is perpetuating victimhood.
No,
so there's no root cause. There's no root cause to why crime and all these things happen. It just happens.
Go ahead. I'll follow the line of thought.
No. What do you think the root cause is for the statistics that Kevin just said?
To be honest, I think it's community more than anything else.
It's the community is the second layer, right? Because if he doesn't have a father, now you're relying on your community, and if you don't have a community, well, now what are you like? It's the second tier of what is important, because the fact of the matter is that children brought up into single parent households are overwhelmingly, it's not a victim mentality, because what you prove is that it's possible to not be shitty. So again, I'm
the one standing up against you guys having the conversation. No, you guys are actually perpetuating the stereotype and perpetuating the victimhood.
No, what we're talking about is the fact that the NBA goes out and they celebrate single mothers. On Mother's Day, they talk about how great all these single mothers were. It's like, I'm sorry, but we should not be encouraging this. We should not be praising it. It's not, because overwhelmingly single mothers are not, have proven statistically, single mothers and fathers, single fathers are in there, because, oh, by the way, having a single father leads to serial killers, not gangbangers. When you have that kind of scenario, to praise, that's the problem. It's the cultural side of things. It's the fact that rather than saying that, well, thank God Mama Russo was the amazing woman that she was and was capable of raising you properly, because she clearly did. It's saying, why is it the case that most other situations of this do not turn out this way? And because they don't, I don't want, even though I know my mother did it successfully, I think it's still better for two parents, and I'm going to encourage two parents. Because the rate of terrible parenting is significantly lower in two-parent households, to the point of being, you should only encourage two-parent households above single-parent households. That's how significant the statistical disparities between the children that comes out of these homes is. It's not saying that they're not a victim.
But we're also, I've said before, we're not splitting up the racial aspect into a statistical anomaly, or those statistical.
Because it presents itself no matter the race. It presents itself. Regardless,
it presents itself, but it is drastically different in the black race that has had systemic racism forced.
There's more single mothers.
Exactly, which is what Soonie said earlier. Can we move on to LGBTQ and Trump and wrap this show up? Soonie, Trump was seen, or was part of the LGBTQ event last week? I believe it was last week, and I know that you had a post about that thought process on the Republican Party and LGBTQ.
Let me gather my thoughts, man. Sorry.
Yeah. Anybody got any good dad jokes? And while Soonie's gathering her thoughts, I want to be very clear. I enjoy having conversations like this, because I think it's important to listen to each other and to realize there's certain things I learned earlier. There's certain, there's certain ways of looking at things differently and understanding that I don't have to feel the same way, but I understand more where Soonie's coming from. I understand more where Kevin's coming from. I hope they understand more of why I fight the different direction. But I think these kind of conversations, yes, this isn't the typical show where we are, where we're all in agreement on stuff. And that's why I thought this would be an interesting show. That's why we have not literally we've lost 15, 20 viewers, which, we've been going for 2 hours. People are curious what we're going to say to each other when we have difference in opinion. We do not all have to be the same. when we think a certain way, which is key. And when I say something is offensive, I'm not offended by it. I'm saying it's a statement that can be deemed as offensive. And I'm sure the same when Soonie and Kevin got upset with me. They are disagreeing vehemently, but it doesn't mean that they think anything less of my argument. This is proof that we can agree to disagree on certain topics. That's where we're going. And actually we should have Casey wrap, because he's always the voice of calmness. Should have had him wrap that last topic up. Do you want to wrap the last topic before Soonie gets going, or are you just gonna keep the
Let's just move on.
So I'm waiting for that strike to come in.
All right. See, Antonia says likes to hear the difference in opinion. All right, Soonie, and hopefully it gives, if somebody might hear something that agreed with me, and they might hear Soonie say something and goes, "Shit, I never thought of that." I saw a lot of people jump in the comment box and be like, "Soonie, I never looked at it. Soonie's spot on that one. Never looked at it like that." So there is conversation and learning to be had in both directions. Soonie, Trump at the LGBTQ event, Republicans supporting LGBTQ events.
I don't think it's wise to initiate a pride coalition while also promoting the traditional makeup of a family. I don't think it's wise to give people who are clearly suffering with something mentally, when we talk about the trans issues, a platform. No other group has a platform. There are several different groups that are still facing, we can use the words disparities, because the LGBTQ group feels like they are facing some disparities with human rights. They can feel how they feel, but this is going to piss off a large portion of the Republican constituents. So I thought it was I can't lie and say it bothered me. I don't understand why we're forming a pride coalition with a group that fought and sued the government for Don't Ask, Don't Tell. They also fought California to initiate or to implement teachers being able to openly practice their sexuality in the classroom. Like, if you're gay, be gay. Have no problem with that. But why does it need to be displayed in your classroom in front of children that you could possibly influence? And this is what the Log Cabin Group has done over 30 years.
Yeah, I'm looking more. I looked into it a little bit. I'm re-looking at it. So, and again, this might be kind of a whataboutism on this one. So do you? And I think, are you specifically taking issue with the Log Cabin? I guess coalition or conservative. What are they? Log Cabin Republicans. Do you take issue with them, or do you have an issue with any kind of Republican support for LGBTQ members or Republicans?
If we're against identity politics, then there should be no pride coalition with the Republican Party. It's an identity. You're identifying as gay. So why do we get to play identity politics in this instance? But in any other aspects, we don't want to do that.
It's because it's all about playing the same game, and it's really fucking annoying. A lot of the mainstream conservative movement claims to be above it, and they're just at the same level as the left. They use hypocrisy as the defining factor, and it's like, I'm sorry, do you not have a mirror somewhere in your home? Because you're doing a really good job of ignoring your own reflection in this case. It's like, what happened to your values? I had, when I was working for Turning Point, there were members of the club that were gay, but you know what? You didn't find out until you asked them fucking directly. And in that case, they didn't really care about it. It wasn't a big deal. All that they cared about was the conservative side of things. All they cared about was their ideas and their policy in those things. And that's how it should be, right? And if someone's what is it? The MAGA tranny or whatever she calls herself. It's like, that's fucking ridiculous. Why are you okay with that kind of stuff? Because it's exactly that part of the movement that is out there and lambastic and bombastic about it. That's going after children and stuff that we have a problem with. And it's like, you know what? Like, at the end of the day, you shouldn't be able to tell, because what matters is the ideas. And if you're playing into that intersectional game, you're just the same thing as the left. You just think you're better than it.
Do you believe there's a difference between the terminology acceptance and celebration?
Yes. That's why you have a Pride Month, but like because of Pride.
I think
Cel-
Pride Month is. I think
yeah.
Pride Month is ridiculous. But
The only person who should be proud of themselves is the one that has committed no sin, and therefore it's like, I'm sorry, I wouldn't throw myself a pride parade. Why do you throw a pride parade? Are you perfect? No, you're not perfect. No one's perfect. No one deserves a parade for their pride.
so I get that. On something like an event, and I'm looking more into. I actually just thought it was a gay conservative event, so I think it's a little different now that I'm learning a little bit more about the log cabin Republicans. Say I'm gonna run for office, and say I'm gonna be on the Republican ticket, even though I don't fully agree with the GOP or RNC across the board. Say I'm gonna run, but I want to go to a gay Republicans dinner. They've invited me. I want to speak there. I have a large amount of acceptance for the group. I would love for their vote. I would love for them to have the same rights as every other American. I don't want to celebrate their rights. I don't want to force it down children's throats. I don't want it to be something taught in schools about how beautiful it is for Timmy and Tommy to be loving each other at 6 years old. But I do believe that they are an equal member of society. I think that they are great people. Would it be offensive for me to, or would it be going against my politics or policy for me to be as a Republican to go to something like that?
If you're okay with it, I don't give a shit what you do, but just know that if that's okay with if that's logically consistent with what you say and how you approach things, then so fucking be it. The problem comes in when it's not in line with it's not consistent with how you normally approach similar situations.
That's how
If you complain about the left doing that and having gay dinners and gay liberal dinners, then no, you should not go to one for Republicans. But if you don't care if the left does it, then why should you care if the Republicans do it? Because that's not the issue. That's at least my personal opinion.
So then it's completely fine for a Republican to do something like that if he supports it, as long as he's not, anti-gay marriage or something like that. As long as he's not being hypocritical, it doesn't go against the party to attend a gay event. Correct?
No. But it depends on how you're platforming it. If you're a specific part, we are the Republicans for X, then that's one thing. But if you're saying you are the GOP, you are the establishment, then that is not logically consistent. No.
It's fair. So, Soonie, do you feel so? Again, my original question was, it's this is take away this being the log cabin Republicans, which I need to get a little bit more information on what you said about them. But say that this was a regular LGBT event. They're not even calling it an LGBTQ event. They're calling it an LGBT event. Trump, by the way, has always been, people call him this weird misogynist homophobe, but he has never been anti-gay. He's a lot of gay friends. He had the first person in his cabinet that was gay. First gay cabinet member that people want to ignore and say that it's Mayor Pete, but he's always been very supportive of the gay community. He's been in Hollywood for a long time, so clearly okay with the gay community. So do you think that if it was a regular gay event that you would have an issue with that?
I don't have an issue with Trump going. I have an issue with the RNC forming a pride coalition.
Oh,
okay. And that's what she's talking about. The log cabin Republicans, as I understand it, are specifically LGBT like conservatives that are for LGBT like advancement, and that's like their thing. So that's what they do. And if Trump wants to be there, so be it. Like you said, Soonie,
Al, you may have made the biggest, absolute, 100% true observation of the night. America is confused by design. A lot of the topics we're discussing tonight, just simply said, they are ethos styles arguments. They are not pragmatic in the sense of how we change things. So I agree with your sentiment here. We are confused by design. And some of these topics, I can agree with fundamental aspects of certain portions of it. But this is a lot of confusion.
I think honestly, as I'm learning more about Soonie's issue with it, I kind of agree. I think that Republicans should be part. I think they should actively be a part more of the gay community in terms of if there is conservative gay people that I know, it's against certain biblical ideals, but again, I don't believe it's our place to judge. but I miss guys this, that, and the other. 3 years ago, they didn't believe in gay marriage, which, by the way, Obama didn't. Whatever. But there was a lot of Democrats that didn't believe in gay, but it allows them to go back and show contradictions, and I just think it's silly because it's not a staple of the Republican ideal or conservative ideal. Even though we can be very accepting of it, this goes from acceptance to celebration. So I'm actually going to agree with Soonie on this one, especially the more that I've learned about it and read while we've been talking. Because Soonie, I misunderstood your point. I thought it was more of like, how dare a Republican go to a gay event? But now I know your issue, and I agree. Good there.
Awesome.
I want to reiterate, I'm a libertarian, so I have entirely different positions on a lot of this stuff, but keep it out of my fucking schools and away from my kids. That's all I care about.
Easy brought up a very astute point. We're going up on 2.5 hours. I think it's about time we wrap it up. Let's. I mean, I love shit like this. I also have head problems and love to debate and have conversations that get feisty. So, all right. So let's see. Yeah, acceptance, celebration. No. Casey, you've been predominantly quiet. We'll start with you. Go and wrap it up.
My big thing, just to wrap up everything from what we talked about and me processing, we brought up a lot of categories tonight on what we categorized people as. And I think that needs to stop. Everybody's an American, and that's where we need to start. I don't care what category you want to put people in. It's not productive. Doesn't matter. We are all Americans. We all want the best for our country, and we need to start unifying around that. And that's what I got out of the messages and the conversations tonight. I think we need to push more for that. And that's my 2 cents.
Agreed. Well said. Easy. Going to you next.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement here. I think a lot of the conversation we had tonight, although interesting conversation, definitely helps deduce certain people's standpoint on specific issues. It is another breath of fresh air in that we have to focus on fundamental things that we agree on. So whether it's this topic or that topic, some of them are just distraction topics, and we're getting stuck in them. If we really want to move forward as a country, the best way to do it is to recognize the things we have in common and the things you hold and cherish, and try and make sure that we elevate those things.
Love it. Easy. Before we go up to Kevin,
also awakenotwokestore.com. Go ahead and get yourself a nice patriotic t-shirt, 25% off with the code Thanks Veterans. I think we're running that until tonight or tomorrow night midnight. Is that
we're gonna? Because I figure as long as I have a couple things going on throughout the day, but we're gonna try to make sure we're playing the Rittenhouse trial tomorrow. So make sure we'll let people know about it then. So again, 25% off by using Thanks Veterans. All right, anarchists, go for it.
Yeah. So once again, this is a more nationally centralized thing. If you're more interested in local politics, as always, look into your local parties. Look into your Republican, Libertarian parties. You got the Libertarian right here, and also just remember that part of these discussions and why they're so good is that we must get to the actual address the issues, regardless of how we personally feel about the issue being discussed, what our own experiences with the issue being discussed are. The only way we can actually figure out solutions to these problems is by having difficult discussions where we disagree like this, and coming together and being able to realize that, hey, we disagreed pretty vehemently on a lot of these things. We had some really good back and forth, but at the end of the day, we're friends and we love each other. And love is ultimately what is going to get us through this problem that we're in right now. Love does not mean only ever good. Love means, tough love exists as well. But the only way we're going to get through any of this is by treating people as people, not treating them as part of monoliths or coalitions or all this other stuff. You are a person. You are you. When we talk about minorities, always remember the ultimate minority is the individual. And you are the only you that exists in the world. And you are the only thing whose perspective that you can really provide on any of this. And that's what really matters, is the individual. So we get through this together as individuals.
Sooni's still backstage. We'll see if she pops back up. My big thing on this is, as I said, I love having conversations like this. we have to realize we are all different. Like I know Kevin and I have had the discussion of why he has become so pro-life when he used to be pro-choice. He saw a movie, it made him a documentary, made him feel a certain way. And ultimately, we all have different ways of looking at things. We all have different life experiences. I have a different life experience. Soonie has a different life experience. Why I said in the beginning that when Cash was saying all lives matter, and I'm like, you can say that, you can if you want, but ultimately, we're not meeting people where they are. And although all of us in this stage agree with most of the things, agree more often than not, it shows that every topic is going to be individual to the person based on their experience, based on the experiences they went through, which is why when we were having conversation, looking for the good in things, there's a certain level of looking for perfect, and we can't sacrifice the good for the perfect, right? Is that the saying? Don't sacrifice the good for the perfect.
Don't sacrifice the perfect or good for the perfect.
Right, exactly.
Or don't let perfect be the enemy of good is the better way to say it.
Exactly. That's another way of saying it. So that's what I'm trying to say, and that's what you're learning from. Hopefully, you learn from the arguments and the conversation and debate that we have. I vehemently disagree with Kevin on some of his stance on single parents and Soonie. That doesn't mean that the 89% of the other stuff we agree on. In fact, is our goal is to be good human beings. And people in the comment box that are like, no, and this, I love the interaction, and I love that you guys got so passionate and excited about it because it's engaging. But ultimately, realize at the end of it, this is proof that nobody is going to be exactly the same. So when you're looking at people on the opposite side, when you're having the conversation, especially as we get closer to Thanksgiving, if your family still invites you, remember that there is always going to be differences, and to try to find some similarities and to sometimes just turn the other cheek or have the conversation with the intention of also listening while you're having it. There's a lot of power in that. And that's essentially Soonie's dad called. That's why she's there. And I know Soonie's also had a rough week on top of the show that she was on here, which we went through the ringer. Barbara, Kevin is coming to Texas. I think Barbara's going to probably beat you. I think my mom is going to beat you also. I think Kelly might beat you.
It's not to say that there aren't wonderful, amazing women, single mothers doing an absolutely fantastic job. It's just that you can't suggest it for everyone unless you actually think it's best for everyone.
Try to cover your ass now that you know you have to meet half of the people.
That's the best way that I think that you phrase it. And again, as I said, words truly matter. Soonie, are you there? Do you want to give the final words? This is the Soonie episode.
No, go ahead. My dad called me, so.
Are you okay?
I can't talk, so I just wanted to come back and say that.
Love you, Soonie.
Awesome.
Take it easy. So again, send some prayers to Soonie. As you guys know, she lost her uncle this week, guy that got her into basketball. She was very close with him. So send her some love. And I know it seems like we were tooth and nail in this episode, but that to me proves the ability we have to have conversation and how different we all are. So send prayers to her. Chelly as well. John Anthony. It's been a very rough week in the Cash community, the community where we all got brought together by Cash. Nikki lost an uncle, Nikki Fatusis. There's been a lot of loss in the last week, so please send your love all across the board. Chelly lost her father, some uncles, etc. So please send prayers to everybody. Think positive thoughts. Remember, life is short. So as we get close to Thanksgiving, just because somebody disagrees with you, be the one that they're going to kick out of the house, and don't be mad when they do just because you're unvied or because you're wearing a Make America Great hat again or something like that. So take it easy, guys. God bless. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Unite, don't fight, or fight to unite, because that's kind of what we did tonight. Take it easy, guys. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see what happens with Kyle tomorrow. The Kai Try.